Hello, welcome back to the JRB podcast with myself, Ryan Levine, joined here by Jeff Jones and Bowden Temnick.
Hello.
Yo.
A departure from our usual, I'm going to say conservatively 2 weeks to, 2 months of radio silence after each episode. Our last one, obviously, was a bit more, I'm going to say, controversial than usual, to put it lightly. And to be honest, a lot of this one is probably going to be reflecting on the previous
Mhm.
and addressing some points people have brought up about it. So, generally, while there is a bit of continuity between all of these, I wouldn't say it's required to watch every single one. It can certainly help just to learn about the things that we, like the opinions that we form, which I'm going to go into later. But for this one specifically, I will say if you have not seen the previous, which I believe should be episode 22, a lot of this will not make any sense. You'll be missing a
We
lot
can
of
probably also
context.
label this one like part 2,
Yeah.
probably.
If well, I can now. Yeah. So this is going to be a lot about the previous thing, building on it a bit. I guess I'm not even sure clarifying is the right word.
I
But
think we will clarify some things, and
yeah,
I think also I think a big part of it is addressing a lot of thoughts and feelings people have, on top of like elaborating upon stuff we said previously or things that we actually forgot to even touch on in the last episode. Because I know that many of us, or I think all three of us, after the episode, were like, "Shit, we should have talked about this. This was like a good
Mhm.
thing, but now we can just do that now."
yeah.
So.
We
So
had probably an hour, half an hour worth of cohesive talk, layering up of what we did miss in the last episode and rebuttals to a lot of people's comments. So
yeah.
it should be good.
So first of all, I'm going to reiterate something I said on the last one, which I guess no one paid attention to, which is, not everything we say people are going to agree with. There are definitely other viewpoints and opinions you could have. However, I will say, form an opinion based on what we actually say. Don't like make up other like we're going to go into this, but a lot of the responses that we got were kind of just not even about anything we said, and it was just very like baffling, or a lot of people
Hmm.
like extrapolating things that aren't true based on nothing. I don't know, which again we're
I
gonna
I mean
clarify,
I mean,
but
yeah, I mean, there are just a lot of comments all over from our video to other social media saying that we say certain things or feel a certain way when that is not reflected in what we actually said,
or
and,
how we actually feel.
or how we
Documented.
actually, or yeah, or how we actually feel, and it feels normally, I feel like it wouldn't bother me, but I think it bothers me more because I feel like a lot of people are using this to spin a narrative that
Hmm.
works for them and that they can benefit off of, and I think that's very disingenuous, and it's very
Where we're
it's
being
very
painted as
unfortunate.
the villain,
I
so to
think
speak.
yeah, so like if somebody says, "Hey, that thing you said is dumb and I disagree with it," I'll be like, "Fair enough." If somebody
Yeah.
says that thing you said makes you an evil person, I'm like, "Okay, that's like I don't think that's fair." Like I don't think I
To,
said
to
that,
quote,
Because I
like
if this sentiment is shared by the pros, I hope their arrogance comes on display if it hasn't already and becomes their downfall.
what
But
is I don't know what that
if it
means, but
hasn't got me
yeah.
yet, it
I
won't get me now. I'll tell you that.
yeah, I mean, last time I got 2.5 death
You
threats
did get to
on
that is
there was
wild.
How
That
does a
is
half
wild.
death threat happen?
because one
Yeah.
could be construed as one. It was more like a
It was a
create a
regular
fic
threat.
it was like a create a fictional scenario, and that
Gotcha.
fictional scenario could be, you know,
Yeah.
a it could be understood as, "Are you threatening me
Yeah.
right now?" Or
Yeah.
like,
Which also I will say this is also us just talking on a podcast pretty like candidly. Like
Hmm.
we're not like, you know, I don't really for the most part go back and edit these. Sometimes I do, but very very
Hmm.
rarely do I really go back and like edit, most of what we say. It's kind of the beauty of it is kind of did that it's just what we're thinking at any, given point in time. And obviously if we're like I don't that's not an excuse to spread misinformation, and like if we're wrong about something I would like to clarify and correct it, but generally speaking, we share opinions, not necessarily fact. And I don't know, we're kind of just talking about Yu-Gi-Oh. And at the end of the day, we are all just talking about Yu-Gi-Oh. So, please keep the physical threats to a minimum, if you would be so kind. But
Hmm.
on to move on, or to get started, I guess. Something I guess first, one thing I want to clarify, I guess, is that this is something that we got on the comments of the video itself, which I agree is a legitimate criticism. Is we kept saying things were good or things were, like things were bad, but didn't give suggestions on how to fix them. And that is true for that video. That is true. That's our bad in terms of, as I mentioned, there is some sort of continuity with a lot of these. And I know from the last episode, looking at the analytics on YouTube, it got more views and we got a lot of subs. So a lot of people joined in for the first time, and they did go back and watch some other ones, but not everybody obviously went back and watched all 20 episodes of it. So there is some context lost there in that. I would say almost every episode we complain about a product and say what we would do to improve it. So while yes, in the last episode we did say, I don't like this about X product, or I don't like this about X product, or products are bad for this reason, or this product is good for this reason, and didn't really give much more elaboration, I will say in our defense, we have elaborated ad nauseum in the previous one. And we are going to talk about it again today a little bit later. We're definitely going to talk about how we would improve some of these sets, or what sets have been good and what sets have been bad, and why sets have been good and why sets have been bad. And why even in the OCG model of product or the TCG model of product, you will have very good sets and you'll have very bad sets, and they can even be the same set. A set that was good in one region can be bad in another region for various reasons. But yeah. I think that's what other clarifications do we need to, I mean, do you want to just address, like, I feel like the common, I guess I'll say, criticisms again, people levied, in my opinion, weren't even about what we necessarily said. So I guess to dispel some misconceptions, no, we don't want Yu-Gi-Oh to cost more. We don't, like, it doesn't, I don't understand this one. We were trying to defend how products are made and why, like, a card being expensive isn't like a cardinal sin. I don't think we were really trying to, like, I don't want to say, like, justify, but, like, we don't want cards to cost, like, we have to buy these cards too. Like, if we want to play,
Right.
like, I don't enjoy spending more money.
I
just,
I
I don't
even
know.
said,
I
I said this
tolerate
to
it
Ryan
more. I
and
don't know how
Jeff
to, sorry, go
when
ahead.
every conversation point was, what was it, sunken cost fallacy, right?
Yes.
Like the whole premise that we are so invested in Yu-Gi-Oh, that's why our opinion is based this way. And the reality is, I think I'm trying to think. So YCS Vancouver had to buy an Unchained deck. Okay, now what? YCS Vegas, we had to buy the Kashtira deck.
We
Right?
did. We had to
It
buy
was the same
3.
thing, and it happens every time. Did I want to? Did I want to spend that much money on those decks? Not even close. No. Like, no, but that's just the price that I paid to remain competitive, I suppose. Like, if they were cheaper, I would have been a lot happier. So, like, that's just an argument you can't even make, right?
Yeah. So again, like, and I guess this was lost in translation. I get, or lost in something. We kept trying to compare Yu-Gi-Oh to other goods, I guess, which is, like, I will now try to do in a better manner, or at least give a more maybe a better example. We are going to these events, right? Like, we are teaming at YCS Vegas, like you and me, actually. We are teaming YCS Vegas.
Mhm.
We have chosen our deck. And a ban list comes out. What, like, you had already left. You live in Australia, you had already left because we were also
Yes,
playing in Mexico. You had
that
to get
too.
a new deck out of the country. Like, obviously this is not an ideal scenario, and you have to
No,
spend a good bit more money than you would like to get this deck. But this is and you're not happy about this. This is, we don't enjoy this. We don't like it, but you want to do as well as you can in this tournament. You want to be competitive, and this is the situation, and you're going to do it. And I'm not defending, like, I'm not going to get mad at Konami for, like, making, like, I don't, it's just the way I see it. Like, yes,
So
if a new PlayStation comes out and it's $300 instead of $500, I guess I would prefer that, but I'm not gonna wave my
yeah,
fist in the
absolutely.
air and complain that it's 500. You know what I mean? I don't like
I think
it's
we should also look at like need, right? So like I needed a deck for YCS Vegas. I traveled all of that way, and I am a competitive player, and I needed what we believe to be the best deck, right? So obviously, when everyone else believes that to be the best deck, the price point goes higher. However, if I was not competing at YCS Vegas and I saw how much that deck was, there is a 99% chance that if all I was doing was playing locals, I would probably not purchase a cash tier deck on release. Like, is that also pretty reasonable? Like,
yes. and I
yeah,
and I
okay,
also and I also think that's something that I guess I don't know, didn't get across. Maybe it did, I don't know.
I,
But
I
sorry,
feel like
go ahead.
people, I yes, I just I think it is much more simple than that. And we're saying like we're not gonna get mad over it. At the end of the day, none of us are wealthy to the fact like we never have to worry about money ever again, and because of that, we don't want to have to spend money if we don't have to. I don't think
hmm
anyone who is in our situation,
Yes.
it's like if, if someone asks me right now, do I want to go spend money? Like, no. If
No.
I don't have to spend
No, I
money,
don't want to go
I
spend money.
will not
Yeah.
spend money. And people were like very were like what were like vehement or like angry um at the fact that we of something that I don't know how it really didn't get across,
So I think
but
also what I said, I definitely think I said it in a way that was probably more mean than I intended. By probably I mean it was definitely more
hmm
mean than I intended. Where I said the price of your trip is X amount, the price of your deck is X amount.
mhm.
Like, if you're saying that $100 for an SP is an insurmountable amount of money, then you go and spend 7 times that amount for a weekend trip. Either you shouldn't be going on this trip, or you probably have the ability to afford this card. And that's where I think like the argument for me kind of
Mm.
falls when I examine the cost of everything else around it. It sort of rings hollow. And then when I see
Oh,
somebody say, well,
yes.
I don't want to spend $100 because I'm just going to locals. And then my response to that would be, then don't buy the card. And then their
No,
response
no,
is
no, 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 no.
like,
So
I don't know.
their argument makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Like, because from their perspective, they think they're being gate kept from playing the optimal strategy, right? And that's completely reasonable. Look, I think it is unrealistic to have to spend hundreds of dollars to play at a local level. But from our
I
perspective, playing
agree.
at the competitive level, you are already spending a significant chunk of money
To be
regardless.
there.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
Right,
That's a
yeah.
good, yeah.
and like obviously like it is different for people like us, like any of the other competitive players. Like you have someone. Okay, Jeff, do you remember what Jesse said before Indy last week, 2 weeks ago, when he's just like, I'm so unprepared, I have two cards for my deck.
Oh, yeah. He
Yeah,
was,
yeah, yes.
yes.
He
Yes,
literally didn't have a deck
yes.
before the event.
He had Little Knight and he had Typhoon, right? That was it. Typhoon, whatever it is,
Yeah.
the new extent. That was it. That was the extent of it. And that happens so often. It is crazy. And like I think people just don't seem to understand this. It's like, yeah, you are so like you have other responsibilities on top of playtesting, on top of everything else, and it's just like half the time you get to an event on Friday and you pray. You are like, I've messaged 4 people, I am borrowing pods, like this is happening, this is happening. That's literally all that happens. And like that is why we probably have this opinion, right? Like it's just like, oh well, the cards are expensive, but half the time we're not spending money on them, like sure. And
And
like that's
this is
not
also
like it's not our
something,
opinion like directly,
this
but
is
it's
also
definitely a
something that we've
factor that plays
mentioned.
into it, right?
Yes, this is something that we've mentioned on previous episodes that I understand we did not mention on the last one
Mm.
specifically, where there have definitely been a lot of times where we've talked about sets, we've talked about cards, we've talked about sets coming out in proximity to an event, and one of us being like, yeah, I'm really glad X person, didn't go and let me borrow this card, like it really
Yeah.
helped me out. And it's like, yes. And again, I understand. And
That's
again, this is not something, I don't want to have to reiterate this every other sentence. So this episode, I'm going to say it just now and then not say it again. But I've definitely said it a million other times, I understand I am not in the same position that every single person ever is in, because I've been playing this game for so long. I have a ton of friends that play this game, and most of my closest friends I met through this game. If I'm in a situation where I really, 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 really need a card, somebody probably will have
Yeah.
it for me.
Right.
Do I
Right.
make a
I
habit of being in that situation? No.
yeah.
Very
No.
rarely,
Exactly.
but I
I think
understand I have that safety net that not everybody has. But on the flip side, I do like to own the cards in my deck. I don't like, just this is just like a personal thing. I don't like being
Yes.
yes.
responsible
Why
for other
why go in
people's
with that
stuff.
That
anxiety
Yeah.
I
and
was about to say
uncertainty,
that
right?
where I will very rarely borrow cards if I don't have to before that reason. Like I don't have to be responsible for someone else's cards if something happens or whatever. Because if something does happen, guess what? I'm spending money that I don't want to spend.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
And
But it's
I
like in the same vein, it's like if you go to an event and you do not have those cards, like especially now when deck registration closes at 10 a.m. on a Friday before
Yeah.
the venue's even open, right? Like you have to pipeline all of the cards that you were borrowing, right? Like you have to make sure that you have access to these cards. You do not have the option to show up Saturday morning and be like, "Do you have this card?" Right? Like that is just too far gone now. So like especially in the current, well, not climate, like the current way events are ran, I think it's even more like it's more ridiculous to think that like pro players like ourselves will do things like this quite often. Just like you are taking the gamble, right?
I will also
But like
say, we play Yu-Gi-Oh! Clearly, we're not the most organized people in life.
no, exactly, exactly.
Like things are gonna go
If
wrong.
I didn't wake up with crippling anxiety, it's like why not? It's fine.
Yeah, I
I
sorry,
I
go ahead.
think also so speaking of that, I think also a part of like a lot of the situation bothers me is bouncing off of Bowden here. It feels like a lot of people are trying to like dehumanize us,
It is
Mm,
really bizarre,
and
right?
and
Yeah.
and I mean I feel like I am pretty vocal and honest about how I feel about things outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I am just a person like anyone else. I have thoughts and feelings. I have like anxiety or depression. And so when people are like h- villainizing and like saying like I cannot believe they like feel this way, like they are so out of um like they just are like out of touch or whatever, like that like at a personal level affects me. And I don't know. I just kind of wanted to say that because what Bowden said about
it,
his
it goes
waking up with
back
anxiety.
to like, if we say something and somebody's like, which is a couple people, I will say, you know whatever opinion that you had that was unpopular, and then sort of as a joke, not actually as a joke, when I posted the podcast, my little thing was like, I know this like isn't a popular opinion, but like I don't think threatening Jeff is like the way to go about it. And somebody said Jeff absolutely deserves to get dunked for his opinions, but like taking it beyond that is too far. And as I mentioned, like, if you think that our opinions are, invalid or unjust, or even just you think our opinions are stupid and you think that you have all the answers, that's perfectly fine and that's okay. But yes, when it goes to like the personal attacks and in some cases threats, yes, I know I've said that a lot, but it is wild that that's a thing. um Definitely it just sort of you know I think loses focus of the entire argument,
it,
which
It does,
it's
and
also it's kind of tilting because those comments come from like virtual anonymity, right? Like I don't know who you are, but you are wishing death upon me. If
yeah.
I wish death upon you, I would be chastised by the community. It never goes both ways, and it's
Uh-huh.
equally depressing. But here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also like to go on top of that, it makes me feel like a lot of people say or insinuate like it makes they say things like they don't care about like the little people or just like people in general, and that is the exact opposite of how I feel. And I told Bowden this the day after everything happened, where that's one of the things that hurts me the most is because I care actually a fucking lot about other people. especially in the community. And I've done a lot of things over the years to try and help other people. Um, so because of this situation, when other people like to spin narratives in a certain way,
Hmm.
it does affect me, and I hope that we can, through this podcast, can kind of get how we actually feel out there, and hopefully people just listen to this and not, some random YouTube video that clips 30 seconds of it and
Yeah.
is disingenuous to
I,
what
I
we're
think
actually
I
trying
think
to
it is very easy to take some stuff that we say out of context and make it look significantly worse than it actually is. Like, not to say that it was bad to begin with, like they might be controversial takes, but if you do clip them, they actually look, like we're terrible human beings. So I keep that in
Okay,
mind.
I
say.
don't think that's what they look like, but at the same time, yes, I will say somebody. I'm gonna pull it up the next time that one of you guys has this thing to talk about. I'm actually gonna find the comment, but somebody had a very detailed comment on the last one that I did kind of want to look at a little bit. That I actually responded to in the comment section, but where they had a lot of like they actually broke down almost every topic that we covered and had a response to it, and some things they agreed with, some things they didn't, and that's how, in my opinion, that's how you should go about this, right? Not like
Hmm.
it's important to form an opinion based on on the entire context of what we're saying. Anyway, the last thing I kind of want to touch on as far as like the direct responses to our previous video, or Jeff's things, the narrative that some people have created. This is the one that for me, um, like this is the one that got me upset. Um, is the narrative that we want cards to be expensive so other people can't have them, so we have a competitive advantage. That is a narrative that I saw a lot of people comment in a lot of different places, and that
And
was the
I
one
I did
that
not
got me
see it
upset.
until before we started recording this, and there are so many, and that mentality is so crazy
Which,
because
yeah,
we build our decks and make plays. I want people to pay attention to this because it's
yes,
very important.
it is
We
important. Yes,
build our decks and make plays with the expectation that people will already have these cards, so using the argument they don't want us to have cards because then we will be on a more even playing ground. Um,
makes no
we already
sense.
makes no sense because we already planned on the assumption that their opponents have these cards, and it does not affect us at all. We are not going to play a game of
So
Yu-Gi-Oh and assume
this,
that my opponent does not have Little Knight and then make a bad
yes.
play because I don't think my opponent has Little
And
Knight.
then when
So
they summon Little Knight, we go, oh, we throw our hands in the air. Oh, they had little, like, no, that's not how this works, right? And again, and that's also one thing. Again, like, again, I that is one that like I read comments like that, and I just thought to
Hmm.
myself, that line of thinking is so far removed from how anyone who is competitive in anything actually should be thinking, that it
yes.
baffles me. And again, and this thing I said before we started recording that I will say again, like when I read that for the first time, that line of thinking is so toxic. I didn't even think that was a thought a person could
Um,
possess.
Do
Like
these
I just
people not
don't.
know
well,
what
so
Dueling Book
I
and
would
Dueling Network were? Though, like that's what I mean. Like, those completely invalidate that argument. All the cards are accessible. It has a ladder system, and you see these people that are quote unquote doing well on Dueling Book, and most of the time, those are people that are either competitive in real life and they just translate to volume game and they're doing well in YCS events as well, or they're online only, and then when they play IRL, they don't get the same results. Like I don't like how does that work? You're not playing a billion games IRL because sorry, I can't argue this point.
Calm
It's
down.
it's
Yeah, it's
so
okay. It's
tilting
okay.
so
because
so I
do you know when I was growing up and I could not afford a lot of the good cards, I would make these really shitty budget alternatives and I would just aim to get better, right? Or I would play a different deck and I would aim to get better. Every time the format was pricing me up because I was a teenager, I would play on YVD, I'd play with the deck, and if it was a deck that I think I was really consistent with, I would try to borrow cards or I would try to get those cards. And obviously a lot of the time that didn't happen, I'd find the budget alternative and I'd try and get better. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh, that is not as applicable. The format is not as broad. I think it is very clear cut when a deck is significantly better than another deck. And if that is pricing you out, that is unfortunate, right? You don't get the same luxuries that I did when I was a teenager. However, if everyone had access to a lot of these decks in the current realm of Yu-Gi-Oh, I still think it would be quite dependent on skill. You are not getting volume in game, right? Because you own the physical cards now. You were able to get volume from playing unofficial simulators. Oh no, Konami won't monetize that video. Haha. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. If you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh and you think you are going to get good at it, then why would you not try before you buy, right? Is that a concept we can look at here? It's like, obviously, if you get good enough at Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe the investment of $700 for a deck, obviously 700 is just reaching, it could be significantly less or it could be significant more, like who knows? Like, you could just use that as an investment on yourself, right? Like that it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
No one's
Uh,
gatekeeping.
I think
okay.
okay. I think that got a little. That was
I
a fun
think that
one.
I don't
I think
know,
that got a
man.
little
oh,
bit
all
scattered.
right.
All right, let's try to
Uh,
rein that one back in. Let's try to rein this one in, right? Okay, so
I'm
rein
sorry.
back
It just
in
it
and
just angered me. It angered me a lot.
so
focus back on the idea that we don't want people to have cards because they think then they will be able to quote unquote beat us. When again, that is not the case at all. We don't go into tournaments assuming our opponents don't have the best cards. That's not
and
how
no
you
one does
win
that. No,
Yu-Gi-Oh.
no,
Yeah,
no
no one
one,
does
no
that.
one does that. You
Yes,
know,
I'm
like
not
that's
going into
not.
the event and saying, "Wow, my opponent's really like obscure rogue deck doesn't own these like staples or something," right? Like that. I think that's another argument we kept seeing posted. It's just like, yeah, if all of these staples were cheaper, then this rogue deck might do well, and that's just not the case at all. Like that's just hasn't been the case for the longest time. You know, you're just more aware. Like putting the staples in a rogue deck doesn't necessarily make the rogue deck any better. You know, you might increase your win rate, but it doesn't translate to anything.
I truly think the only exception to this rule ever is I did not play around Minerva.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes this was back when
Sure.
Minerva was a prize card, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes my opponent did summon it, and I went,
Sure.
Oh,
yeah, and I went, oh,
I
okay.
think maybe also like another similar would be like giant hand. You're like, oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
sure.
like
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, but yeah.
I definitely
Or if you want to delve
yeah,
back to when Yu-Gi-Oh was in an actual wasteland, let's look at like Crush
crush
Card when it
card,
was still a
yeah,
prize
yeah.
card.
Those are
Sure, like
Yeah,
those.
that's
We are
unacceptable.
yeah.
long past those days. I hope
Uh-huh.
of stuff like that. But yeah, that those truly are the only ones in recent memory where I can think like I did not anticipate an opponent having a card. And it's like my opponent overlays Altair and Deneb for an ultra rare giant hand, and I go, didn't expect that one. You know, like
So just
hmm.
quickly though. So on the note of do you think there's an opposite train of thought where there's people thinking, okay, Yu-Gi-Oh is too expensive, right? And I can't play to the best of my ability because I can't access the cards. Do you think there's other people where it's like I can access every card that I want, but I can't get any better? Because
I
I
I think
mean,
that
full.
is
well,
also a
I
I
mean,
I know
there is a
well
good
I
chunk.
know that's the case because all of
Yeah,
us have offered coaching before, and there are people these people if they can afford coaching, they can probably afford a good deck, right?
yeah.
no, for sure.
And so there are definitely, I mean, the opposite would definitely be true, where like you have all this money, but you can't seem to quite break through whatever glass ceiling you've hit, and yeah,
So like
of course that could be
who
true.
do you think would feel worse though? Like someone what so it's like obviously you know
I think the person who feels disenfranchised is probably
mm,
is going to feel worse, and it's understandable. I don't think any of us have the feel think that it is good for people to feel like they don't have the same opportunities as someone else. I,
sure, sure.
All right, I'm gonna say
it,
something that I mean. Okay, this is gonna be controversial. I'm gonna say something, and then I'm gonna explain how it applied to my life, I guess. So, this is gonna get clipped probably, and I'm just gonna ask, go to the end of it at least. So, I truly think a number of people who complain I only lost because I didn't have X card have many more things contributing to their losses than just not having X card, and are
Mm-hmm.
using not having X card as an excuse for their losses. I know this because when I was a wee lad, I also felt this way in certain positions. In 2012, when I couldn't afford any of the good decks and I played my hero beat deck and my deck was really bad, I definitely would lose to people and just think, wow, I lost because their cards were better, not because they played better or whatever, whatever. And it took me a really, really long time to acknowledge, even if that is the case, a lot of the time, you can also be playing better and you will
Mhm.
win more when you just focus on playing better with the cards you do have instead of just imagining what would be different. Like when I would lose, so like I would lose to Chaos Dragons with my hero beat deck and go, man, those cards are so broken. Like I can't beat them. Like this is dumb. When in actuality, it's like people were doing well with the hero beat deck. It was not the best deck, but it was a deck people were doing well with. And
Do
instead
you know
of
what's
trying
do you
to
know what's funny?
analyze, like,
I also played that deck when Wind Up and like all of those cards
yeah,
were just insane.
which in
Yep.
hindsight,
Jeff
I actually think the deck is
Jeff
good.
actually told me to play it. Jeff, I remember
Yeah,
Jeff had a bubble deck. Yep, funny.
yeah. In hindsight, with all I know about Yu-Gi-Oh now, I actually don't even think that deck is that bad of a pick. And probably nearly all of my losses at that time were because I wasn't very good. And it's really, really, really easy to lose sight of that, I think. And it's really, really, really easy to attribute losses to things that you like to believe are not in your control when a lot of
And
the time there are things in your control. Again, not every single loss is in your control, but there are definitely a lot more things that you could definitely be doing better. And it's like an example, I guess, that I mean that's one of the first things I would usually try to teach people when to go back to
I
talking about
was
when we were
literally
coaching.
about to just say and
Yeah.
talk this about coaching, where this
Hmm.
is something all of us have probably reiterated to people when we coach
Hmm.
them to try to get better, is that you have to really like internalize your losses to understand like why you
And it
lost.
still happens to
And
me now.
most
I also want to point out, it still happens to me now. I will still go back and watch matches I've played. Like, whenever the first thing I do, if I get a feature match at a YCS, when I get back to the hotel, before I go to sleep that night, I watch my feature match. No matter what. If I won, if I lost, don't care. I watch it.
oh
I
yeah, I
want to
don't do that,
see if
but
that's the only,
I
I will watch my own feature match and that's it. I want to see like
I
anything I did
can't.
wrong, anything I did right. Like,
I
yeah.
guess. But I feel like those ones where when I lose, I tend to know what I've done incorrectly shortly after, and rewatching it is just gonna be
Mm.
like a nice
Yeah,
needle.
usually I realize pretty soon after, like if I fucked
Hmm.
up, and I don't want to. My anxiety would not want me to watch that. It would
Again.
be like, oh, this is where you made the mistake and
Yep.
caused you to
Yep.
lose or whatnot.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's always like to grow and be better at Yu-Gi-Oh. I think it's probably safe to say always assume at first that of your loss is your fault,
It could
and
even be
you
like
can
you had the wrong cards in your deck. Like it
right.
might not even be a
No,
technical
no, no,
play
no, no.
thing.
We
Okay,
are so
but
we are
we do.
literally
Okay, so from the perspective of like the monetary barrier, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to use an example, and this is something that I think a lot of other people can relate to, because like this is sort of like what the general public has sort of come at us about. So when I started playing I started playing Dragon Ball Super card game just for fun, like during Yu-Gi-Oh off season. It was like spiral format. We didn't have any real events. Like it just didn't matter. So we would go to locals. However, I was borrowing cards, so I had to borrow a deck from someone, and it wasn't like a particularly good deck. And I was just getting pub stomped in a game where I was like, okay, well, like I know what I'm doing, but my deck is obviously worse. And I didn't own like Dragon Ball Super cards at the time, and I'm just like, wow, like I'm really bound by like what I have available to me.
Mhm.
And that felt kind of like constrictive, because it's like no matter how good I played or how I deck built, it's like I'm still bound by like this limited card pool that I have, right? And this is sort of like what these people are saying, right? It's just like when you
Yes,
don't have
yeah.
the option, obviously, like it doesn't matter like how good you are, like you are just bound by what means you have in front of you.
It just
And then
it's yeah,
afterwards,
I
like
understand it's just like
yeah,
another barrier of like of
exactly,
getting in
right?
the
So it's,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But when I did earn every card, and then I was able to have like the self-reflection, and like I would break down everything else, and it's like, okay, well at that point, like as long as I'm playing more, as long as I'm doing this, this, and this, like the game felt a lot easier, right?
Mhm.
when that happens in Yu-Gi-Oh though, I uh, I don't know. Actually, come back to me on this, or
Okay.
maybe just ignore it completely. I
I'm
don't know how to relate it here, but from like the card game perspective, I have been in the shoes of those people. Like it is something that I have seen like before I can even
No,
look at like a gameplay thing. But I think it's different for me because I was able to identify that because I played card games for a long time, right? Like I
yes.
understand how some of these things work, and it's like maybe a lot of these other people can't identify. It might not be like a monetary barrier or like a deck barrier or something. It could actually just be like a skill barrier. You know, like who's to say? You know, like maybe not all of your problems are caused because the game is too expensive. Maybe there is some other self reflection you have to have, right? Like I had the benefit because I've been playing card games for a long time, but I can say I have been in people's shoes in those similar spots. So
yeah,
I can't fault them.
same, absolutely same. At Dragon Ruler Nationals, I only owned a Spellbook deck and none of the Dragon cards, and I played Spellbook, and I'm playing in the tournament, and I'm like, wow, I really should just be playing Dragon Ruler. I wish I had these cards, and I did terrible that Nationals. So I understand that both can be true, where sometimes you don't have access to something, and that is a hindrance into you winning. I think the major thing also is that I think it comes secondary though to um actually just playing well in general.
Yes.
Oh
So
no,
I
for
have
sure, for sure.
to sort of link back to both what Bowden was saying and what you were saying. As I've mentioned previously in some other episodes, I guess it's not even that recent anymore. Almost a little over 6 months ago now, I started playing the My Hero card game. And that game to pick up a deck was pretty inexpensive. And I played like a top 3, like top 5, like best deck of the format, and it was very, very, very cheap. And whether it be just because that deck just happened to be a bunch of mostly commons, or like the player base wasn't big enough, so there weren't a ton of people clamoring for these cards, so like the price hadn't really like gone up that much. By the time set 5 came out, which I started playing right when set 4 came out, and then set 5 was a couple months after. Sorry, my cat is falling off of a card house. Anyways, um, so when set 5 came out, they changed their their rarity distribution. Haha, this is gonna have a fun ending. And they changed how many secret rares you got. And it used to be 2 secret rares in a set, and a case, which was 6 boxes, would have one of each secret rare. So 4 out of your 6 boxes in a case would not have a secret rare. And
So are secret rares like alternate art cards, or are they
no,
like
they are
individual cards?
mechanically unique cards.
Okay, I
Um,
feel like that's relevant to
yes,
this.
yes, it is. And then for set 5, they changed it where there are 6 different secret rares, but it's 1 per box. So now every box you get a secret rare, but there are 6 of them. So in practice, the odds of like there would be the same number of each, like there being more secret rares doesn't change how accessible a secret rare is. If that makes sense, like you still get one of each secret rare per case, except now 4 of your boxes aren't dead. 4 of your boxes just have a secret rare. So in my opinion, that's better for the consumer, but neither here nor there. A really good deck ended up being popular. It's Overhaul, for those of you that have seen the show. And his ability in the show is he breaks things down and he like recreates them or whatever. And how they translated that in the game, there are mechanics in the game where you can essentially put, like, I think Dragon Ball Super does this, where you can put cards face down and they act as lands, right? So
No,
sort
it's
of.
like you put like cards. They're
I mean,
not face down.
Sure, yeah. But
It
they're
was
like
dictated
blanks,
by
but they're
the
lands.
color that you had. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So in My Hero, some mechanics can put cards face down
yeah.
as lands. And
Sure.
Overhaul's ability is through some, I don't remember what his cost is or whatever, but he can like play the cards that were face down at like his face down lands. Once per turn, he can like play one. So over the course of the game, you're going to build up a lot of these face down things. And then once per turn, you can just play them. So you sort of have like a second hand. And I will say it is an incredibly hard deck. It was very, very difficult to play optimally because you had so many things going on. And what ended up coming out as the best build of Overhaul played 4 of one of the secret rares. And that secret rare got expensive and it became like $60 or $70. At its peak, it was like 90. and people were complaining, pay to win overhaul, like with the secret rare. And it's like, this deck is so hard. Nobody who's winning with overhaul is just paying for these secret rares and then just winning. This deck is insanely difficult. And it really, again, that's just like, I've been playing card games for so long that like I watch somebody play this deck and I go, I've only been playing this game for 6 months. He is making these plays that I would not make because I've not been playing this game enough to know, but I can identify what is good about X decision or whatever. And it's like, this
Right, he
deck is
makes the
so
play,
hard.
and you can sit there and go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah. Like I watch someone do this and I go, oh, that was a really cool play. Like I wouldn't have thought of that, but after seeing it, I think that was a really smart play. And it just baffles me when I think that some of these people are like watching this get played and go, ugh, he played the secret rare again, like pay to win. I'm like, what? Like that's just not like, I think like, hold on, let me make sure I don't mess up this um hold on. I want to make sure I don't mess up this proverb. Is it missing the forest for the trees? Is that what I want to say?
Oh, oh, oh.
I think people are really like,
So like you like
They're fixating on one
yeah,
factor instead of
yeah.
just looking at everything
you're
else.
looking
Sure,
at
sure,
Like,
sure.
this.
so you can't
But
see
that's
the
the thing. But
forest
that's
for the
can't see the forest
trees.
through the trees. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They can't see
They're
the big picture because they're too focused on
Yeah.
the
they're
small
really,
thing.
really focused. Like this guy will have like 17 cards on the table and they've been accumulated over the course of like 7 turns. And then somebody will just point at one and be like, that card's expensive, pay to win. And I'm like, what's happening? Like this is like, so I don't know. I still don't even think like, I mean, maybe I'm like, do people think like if SP is in your deck, then you auto win? Like, is that a thing people think? They think if you
So
summon SP, you win
yeah,
automatically? Like, is that like,
yeah.
is
So
that
uh,
what this argument
on
is devolving to?
on that topic,
Hmm.
because it happened to me recently, and a lot of people. One of the things that we brought up in the last podcast is that if you're going to locals, you don't need the absolute best deck and all those expensive cards.
You do not. I
And
agree.
uh, uh, I at my locals last week, I round 3 had to play against a guy playing their new Red Dragon deck, which was basically just 3 structure decks,
Hmm.
and I almost lost. And it went to game 3. The one game I did summon SP Little Knight, I lost that game. Um, I am a firm believer that you do not need all the craziest cards to go play at locals. Even in my locals is between 30 and 50 people every week, and almost everyone has all the meta cards. Um, I could go probably. I even thought about after playing that guy to just going and getting all the Red Dragon cards and building that to play at my locals, and I would do absolutely fine. I might not go undefeated, but I would still probably make top 8 and get like my store packs or OTS packs or whatever. Um, so I don't think in order to have fun or play Yu-Gi-Oh at locals, you need all the best cards. You're not going to win every single game just because you have SP.
I
Well, could it be a contributing
I am
factor?
genuinely
Yeah.
jealous. I'm genuinely jealous of people that are able to alternate decks at a local level because that seems so fun. You have no idea. I feel gate kept
Yeah.
not by like the monetary value. It's just like I can't justify earning multiple decks, right? Because like as we said before, it's like usually you get to a YCS and then you end up just borrowing a deck or buying the cards from the vendors like in the morning or something. Like it again, it's the benefit that we have. We're friends with a lot of the vendors, in the building. Like the stores are just stores that our friends work at, and it's just all perfect. But like when I go to locals, it's like, yeah, I would love to try this deck out, but it's like I can't. So what I do instead is I just sit on DB, I play it, and if it feels like a deck that maybe I play in the long term, I try and purchase it or something. But I'm genuinely jealous about the people that can switch to a different deck every week. They just get to play all of these decks IRL, and like I just like holding Yu-Gi-Oh cards. This stuff's fun.
That's actually
Yeah.
something
I
that
feel
I
gate kept in that
hadn't
I
respect.
considered. I haven't seen anybody actually bring this up, which is I'm gonna give the ops some fuel here. Um, something that I've actually heard nobody mention, and probably if they did for like 5 seconds, I'd be like, well, that's dumb. And then I'd think about it more and be like, maybe that's actually not that dumb. Maybe you're right. Is like generally people who pick up a deck during a format, I will say now, I don't even think it used to be like this, but I'm going to say now it's definitely like this. People are definitely like known for playing decks as long as that deck is relevant, if that
That
makes
is
sense.
so true, especially
And
at my
yeah,
locals. But this is also like the case for both people who have the money and could switch,
which,
and for the people who maybe are not as fortunate,
well,
where they play
Mhm.
one deck as long as possible. So which is
yes,
that's actually very strange because
but
for
I want
me,
to say,
at least
hold
in
on,
my
let me,
local scene, that's
please,
how it
let
is.
me, just give me a second.
Yep.
Okay. What I want to finish is like, I, and maybe the reason for that, even at the highest level, is maybe you are priced in. Like,
Hmm.
and I think it's weird. I think there are levels to this. So let's examine the different levels. And
Oh,
I'm going to bring in
so
some
I
personal
definitely agree
examples.
with that, right? Because like again, if you spend that initial investment of like $600 or something for
Mhm.
a tier one deck when it comes out, like you are now only playing that deck for an extended period of time,
Maybe,
and if that
yes.
ends up being the
Yeah.
best deck of the format, like that's not by your own choice. Like you could be completely bored of it, but it's like that is
Yeah.
the only you have because of your initial investment. And I do know people like that.
I was just
Like,
about to say about getting bored. Where like, I get bored with Yu-Gi-Oh decks very
Me
easily,
too.
and
oh yeah.
and when Tournament came out, I had the entire Tournament deck, and I was like pretty bored with it after a week. But I was like, well, I got all these cards for it. I might as well just play it and not buy like Sprite cards to try and play a Sprite deck for fun. And that's what I did. I
Yeah.
just kept playing the Tournament deck because
And
getting more
that's
cards
and that's
just
to
was
say
more of a pain.
like if these cards, so okay, something that I've mentioned a lot. Like, I know this is going to be really scattered, but I promise eventually what I'm trying to say will make sense and will be actually an argument against cards being expensive. But so something that we also mentioned is whenever somebody brings up the prices of decks, right? They always like to just put a screenshot of like a top 32 deck and it costs like $700. And then if you really examine it, the
Oh
cards are
yes, yes,
like
yes.
90% are just like Ash, Imperm, Zeus. And it's like, if you're playing
Uh,
at any
From the
sort of
very
competitive
beginning,
level, you have those cards. So I think it's disingenuous to just post a
it
screenshot
is.
of this deck is $700. It's like, yeah, but I've owned Ash Blossom for 6 years. So it's
Yeah,
not like,
Ash and Perm,
it's
like
not
all these
quite,
cards, unless but that would go to the top if you're just getting into Yu-Gi-Oh.
it is,
Yes,
yes, that is
that can be a
expensive.
thing, and we've already talked about this before in other podcasts. How like
We
the
have.
barrier to entry for Yu-Gi-Oh is like super fucking shit, right?
Yeah, which maybe it'll be
Um,
Mhm.
better now with the Rarity Collection, and we'll talk about that later. I promise. That'll be the thing we're talking. So
but in general, if you are someone who plays Yu-Gi-Oh uh, more often than not, a lot of these times you will just have a lot of these staple cards, and it's a good chunk of the price of a deck. The deck actually isn't $700 to build. It's only $700 to build if you own
from
0
scratch,
cards.
yes,
Right,
yes,
yeah.
which is the same in Master Duel and the same in all these things. Where like once you accumulate the staples, it is much easier to get the surrounding bits. There are exceptions to that, obviously, and the biggest exception is generally speaking the first event or two that a new extra deck card is out. That card is usually pretty expensive, like a generic one.
Mhm.
We've seen this many, many, many times. We've seen Borreload Dragon be expensive. We've seen Boral Sword Dragon be expensive. We've seen Access Code be expensive. We've seen Appaloosa be expensive. We've seen IP been expensive. Now we're seeing SP be expensive. We've seen Zeus be expensive. That's because the extra deck cards are the most generic in the game. So everyone needs them. Not, like need. We've been talking about the difference of need, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone can use them. Everyone can put them in their deck. So when every single person at the locals goes, I play Xyz monsters, I can buy a Zeus. It's like that'll be worth more than, some other random archetypal card. That's also, I think, why we saw like Sprite Elf be almost double the cost of Gigantic Sprite, because you could play Sprite Elf in way more decks, you
And it was
know?
just way more broken
Yeah.
too, so
It was just way
Yeah.
more decks. But yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is with the cost of these cards being high for archetypal cards, we probably see people kind of get like locked into decks. And maybe it's because like because like power creep isn't as pronounced as it used to be, and a lot of the meta changes are like from ban lists in my since like oh, I don't know why the timer went off, sorry. Since like maybe Power of the Elements, I don't know. I feel like we've had stretches of like a year or sometimes even longer where no deck really changed its position until a ban list came out. But
Sure.
maybe
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it seems like a
right.
common trend.
So I feel like people buy a deck and then they kind of get, I'm gonna say, priced in. Like, I bought this Kashtira deck. I'm gonna keep playing it until it is no longer viable. Right? Like, that is a thing. And it kind of goes back to like it is difficult to try out different decks at a local level when we get into things like this, right? Where like I bought this Kashtira deck. Okay, now I want to try out this Rescue Ace deck at locals. Oh man, Hydrant's like $50 now. You know, but I just want to try it out at locals. Like, I guess I won't do this, right? I guess I'm gonna keep playing Kashtira. And that honestly, I wonder if there's a world that really contributes to like deck trends and meta trends. But I don't know. I'm probably reading too far into it. But basically what I'm saying is when cards are more expensive, you almost certainly see people switch decks less frequently.
Yeah.
And that is actually something that I wish could
Be
maybe get
alleviated.
changed. And I think the biggest problem is archetypal cards generally don't get reprinted, honestly, until they kind of suck. I feel like that happens a lot, right? Like if we
Mm,
look at the archetypes reprinted in the tins, what are the archetypes reprinted in the tins? There's Exo Sister, which is not a terrible deck, but it's definitely far from its peak, right? Um,
sure.
and then we look at Kashtira. Oh wow, they just all got banned. You know? Huh. Okay. What else? Adventure. Wow, didn't those cards come out like 18 months ago? And no deck plays them anymore because they banned every single engine that was played around them, right? Like that can feel kind of bad, I think. Whoa,
Yeah.
sorry, my cats
But
are also falling off more things. Anyways,
but
yeah.
I think that also goes back into like where are many podcasts where we talk about they make these sets so shit and they always are on extremes. They are either basically super crap or they're super broken, and then there's very little in between. Um, and then you have like these such disparities that people make people really mad. Like on one hand, you have stores with product that is worthless and they wasted a bunch of money, and that is really bad. A lot of stores are just like smaller shops, and that's really bad for them. And then you have other ones like this set where there are a lot of really powerful, strong cards, and then you have people who can get priced out, and it makes them like upset. Um, and again, this goes back to our last podcast where there needs to be more of a middle ground in with Konami and how they do sets, and not just have such huge disparities of so good or so bad. Um,
Which one thing I want to talk about? Let's actually segue into something that I
yes,
want to talk about. I have on one of my talking points. My point I just have is sets right now are not good and should be changed. That is all I wrote down. Right. So I think also something that a lot of people took away from last week specifically when we said the OCG model probably wouldn't translate directly to TCG for various factors, which I do kind of want to go into.
yeah,
That
we
does
will definitely
not
elaborate on
mean,
that
yes,
because
that
there are
does
so many people who still
who
think that
yes,
you should just do this.
yes, that does not mean we think how products are handled right now is good. In fact, we even
Plot
mentioned
twist,
this
there's evidence.
and we mentioned that John Moore posts about it on Twitter a lot and how he's kind of the one that started this discussion of products being worthless because they're not good or whatever and the sets need to change. And yes, I agree. And I thought we said that last week. Maybe we didn't, but I'm pretty sure we did. No one seems to think we did, but I think we did. If we didn't say it last week, we definitely said it literally every
Well,
other week.
maybe we sort of just like alluded to it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay. So
Like,
something.
so
Yeah.
go on, Ryan. You, you
So
you go first,
so
and then
what
we'll
I
yell
want
about
to
something
talk
else.
about, this is going to be sort of like a, a larger example as to kind of what we're going to talk about with expected value. So when Magicians of Bonds and Unity was first announced and the whole concept of it, I was very skeptical.
We
And
all were.
then
I don't think any of us were like, "Oh, this is a good idea."
when Duelist Nexus came out, I was surprised to see how much value it retained, to the point it is now the definitive most valuable card from Duelist Nexus. It has gone down a lot since its initial release, but it is currently the most valuable card from Duelist Nexus, mainly because a lot of the other cards from Duelist Nexus that are good are archetypal cards that aren't the best decks right now. So for
Is
something
there
like,
demand for this card, by the way? Like,
well,
I'm genuinely
here's what
curious.
I'm gonna say.
Mm,
So Duelist Nexus. A lot of what we're gonna talk about for these packs is gonna be EV, which is expected value, and
uh-huh.
Duelist Net. And generally speaking, the price of the box roughly would probably, if we graphed every single set from the last couple years, we'd probably see the graph of the price of the box match up roughly with the expected value of what you would get from the box. And Duelist Nexus currently sells for, on TCG Player, currently sells for
Oh, it's real bad.
$47 a box, which is
Yeah.
very low for what you would expect this to be. Age of
Not only is it
Overlord,
very low, this is lower than stores would have to buy it
yes,
for.
that is lower than a store's cost. Age of Overlord is like, after a couple more get sold, is $75 a box, which is
Which is about the average price of what a box is normally is.
no, that's pretty high recently, unfortunately.
It's yeah,
No,
it's
no, no,
like
It's
no.
pretty
well,
high.
well
Okay,
above
okay, no,
it.
no. Okay, normally should be
Yeah,
when
yes.
when
I would
sets
say
come
this
out,
is,
they are all my
yeah.
stores sell them for like between $70 and
Yes,
$80.
I would say this is a healthy price for a box to be a couple weeks out of release, right? Like this is a value where, if you are a store, which is kind of how we want to view this lens, because in my opinion, what keeps Yu-Gi-Oh relevant as like a social game is the local scene. And to have a local scene, you need a store that stocks the product. And for your store to stock the product, the store has to be making money on the product. If I am a store and boxes of a set are selling at $75 online, and that means that somebody will come into my store and buy it for about that much, and people will actually buy it. I could put Duelist Nexus on the shelf for $75. Nobody's gonna buy it, because why would you, right? If I want to actually sell it, I have to discount it, and then I have to lose money, and then I go, why would I stock Yu-Gi-Oh anymore? For Age of Overlord, it is a healthy price, and this is, in my opinion, where you want product to be, right? And this is where we see like the above average sets. This is kind of where Pote was, and I think Dabble might have even been a little bit higher than this, but I think that could have been influenced by the fact that Dabble was the first set after the second MSRP increase, but I could be wrong about that. But I think it was Dabble. But anyway, what I wanted to get at is Magicians of Bonds and Unity. For those of you who don't really know what this card is, it is a card that exclusively comes in Quarter Century Secret Rare, and they've announced there will be it will be in all 4 core sets. It'll be in Duelist Nexus, Age of Overlord, or past tense, it is in Duelist Nexus, Age of Overlord, Phantom Nightmare, and then it will be in this set after Phantom Nightmare, whose name I did not write down.
It's
I'm
like
sorry.
it's something of destruction.
Yeah,
Like it's like a light of destruction
yeah,
set,
whatever
but
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. So, and then it is the same card functionally, but it has a different background. I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but for those of you who also don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh follows a booster pack rainbow, which is kind of cool, that they go through a cycle of colors of packs. So Duelist Nexus is a green pack, and after the green pack, the pack is always yellow. Age of Overlord, if you look, is a yellow pack. Therefore, Magicians of Bonds and Unity, that comes out of Duelist Nexus, has a green background, and Magicians of Bonds and Unity, that comes out of Age of Overlord, has a yellow background. I think that's
What
kind of
color is
neat.
Phantom Nightmare? I'm colorblind. Is it purple?
I don't know. I'll
It
check
has
right
Yubo
now.
on it. I'm looking at it.
Let's see what set comes out. It should be red.
Phantom Nightmare.
Yeah, because the booster pack rainbow goes because it was I only remember this because the set after Abyss Rising, which was the yellow set, is Cosmo Blazer, which is a red set.
Oh, okay.
And the set after Cosmo Blazer is Tachyon, which is an orange set. So Magicians of Bonds Unity from Phantom Nightmare should be red, and then the
The final
Magicians
one
of
should
Bonds
be
Unity,
orange.
the final one should be orange. I don't know if they've adjusted the rainbow in the 10 years it's been since Tachyon came out, but if I remember correctly, it is green, yellow, red, orange.
Okay.
Anyways, that was a lot of background for no reason. What I want to get at, I promise. What I want to get at is Magicians of Bonds Immunity from Duelist Nexus is a whopping, for a near mint copy from a verified seller on DCG Player, whopping $120. Okay, $120. Most expensive card in the set. From Age of Overlord, it is near mint from a verified seller,
$65.
$66.
Yeah.
Now, let's discuss. Why would that be? It all comes down to expected value and Duelist Nexus. If you look at the other cards in the set, generally speaking, much cheaper, right? The next highest card is Revolution Synchron, which is $88. Oh my god, this card's gone down so much.
Yeah,
This
it's
card
real
was
bad.
almost $200. Yeah, this card's gone down a ton. And then we see Unchained Lord of Yama. This card's actually gone up, and it's about $100, maybe a little under. Right, so you see most of these cards trending at about the 75, 60, 50 range. And unfortunately, that means there have to be some cards have to be worth something because the actual cost of acquisition from a distributor for these stores is not zero. Like, they paid money for these boxes and they opened them and they have to sell the cards, and the money has to come from somewhere, and it's not going to come from Noble Arms Museum. So Magicians of Bonds and Unity has to pick up the slack because nothing else is going to, right? And then you see Age of Overlord. This card has SP Little Knight, $100 secret rare. It has Wanted, Seeker of Sinful Spoils. Even the secret rare version is above $50. It has a bunch of quarter century secret rares over $100. SP quarter century secret rares like $450. We see Diabell Star, Typhon, and again, the quarter century version of Wanted, all creeping above $150. And then the Horus quarter century secret rares like $50, $100. Magicians of Bonds and Unity, functionally identical card, and the exact same pull rate from Age of Overlord from Duelist Nexus, half the cost. Because it doesn't need to do the heavy lifting. A store opening this is no longer looking at their products and going, oh my god, all these cards are worthless. I sure hope somebody buys this Magicians of Bonds and Unity green for $120. Mm-hmm. They're looking at these cards and going, wow, we actually made our money opening this pack because these cards are playable and people want them. And then now, Magicians of Bonds and Unity is not a playable card, right? Like, it's pretty bad. And it no longer has to fill, like, and you could argue it's also because that it's the second printing of the card. But I would argue if that was the reason, then we'd also see the green one go down. But we really haven't, not that much at least. Like, we sort of have, but they haven't equalized.
I think it has to do with that, and also with the fact that Age of Overlord is a much more open set, so there are probably more in circulation.
There are more listings for the green one than the Age of Overlord one.
Yeah,
that's the other one that baffles me. There are more listings of the green one than the yellow.
Yes, but that also makes sense because if someone wants a Magicians of Bonds and Unity, why would they buy the more expensive one?
Sure. Now you're right. So you're saying at a point there may have been more in circulation, but they've just been purchased. That's a good point. I didn't consider that.
Like, if someone, I'm going to assume that, yeah, like people.
Let's say if
someone just wants one,
yeah,
they would be like, all right, I'll just buy the. One.
You're right. Like, which we see the green one sells much less frequently than the yellow one. So that's a good point. There definitely could at one point have been significantly more in circulation, and just anyone who wanted one was like, oh, I'll just get the yellow one. Right. And then I think the idea is that once all four are out, you can collect them all. And maybe we'll see these bounce back, kind of like we did with like the Lost Arts for like the Exodia pieces. Like, maybe we'll see once all 5 come out, people sell them as a set. People really want them, and maybe there's some rebounding on the value of this stuff. But as it stands, I think it's just a pretty good example of just like how a literal identical card can be worth half as much from a better set just because of the rest of the cards surrounding it. And yeah, so as far as we said, sets right now are not good and should be changed, right? What makes a set good or bad? In my opinion, a good set is one, and again, like this is all subjective. What makes a set good and what makes a set bad? I don't think the monetary value, like reselling of a set, is the end all be all of what makes it good or what makes it bad, but it definitely is a reasonable indicator. And generally speaking, the sets that perform the best have sought after cards. And unfortunately, I don't think collector cards, I say collector with some air quotes, really do it anymore. By that I mean, if you look at Battle of Chaos, and the current prices are going to be skewed because they've all been reprinted in the tins now, but if you look at Battle of Chaos, the expensive card from this set was Guardian Chimera because it was playable, right? Like that was the expensive like secret rare in the set. And then when you look at like the Starlight rares, the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon Starlight, which you would look at that, from an outsider perspective of somebody who like knows a little bit about Yu-Gi-Oh but not like a ton, you would look at it and be like, whoa, Starlight of a Blue Eyes card, like surely that's the most valuable card out there. And it's like $100. Like it's like for a Starlight rare, for the difficulty to get a Starlight, in that on average there's one Starlight there's a Starlight. There was one about every other case. There were 5 Starlights, meaning to get a specific Starlight was roughly 1 in 10 cases. To see these Starlight rares that are basically 1 in 10 cases of getting a specific Starlight rare, which what's the value of how much is 10 cases? That's let's put that in perspective. Let's go with roughly, let's do it somewhere in between. Let's just say $60 a box. That's like a pretty average price for a box now. And for 10 cases, that's over $7,000 of packs to on average pull one Starlight rare, Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, which obviously you get a lot more cards than just that one Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. But for that card to be $100, to me, is kind of insane. And the reason it is so cheap is because nobody wants it. Do you disagree with that assessment?
Yeah, I do not disagree with that.
and I understand, there is also the narrative of you make cards cheaper, and then people will buy the cheaper ones, and then people who want to bling out their decks will buy the expensive ones. We can kind of see from most of the values of these cards that isn't really what happens. We have some extreme cases. Like obviously, Quarter Century SP Little Knight, the hottest card in the game right now, is $500, right? Like that is the card that every single person wants. And that is an outlier from recent trends of some of these cards. I think we see a lot of these collector's rares of cards be so similar to their other printings. Let me look up, is Hydrant still what I think it is? So at one point, somewhat recently, Hydrant was almost $60. It looks like it peaked at $55. Now they're about 45. Now they're about 45. And then Collector's Rare is $85. Which I know that sounds like, oh, it's almost twice as much, but it's like, this is the perceived best deck, and the lowest rarity printing of this card is almost $50. For the collector's rare to not even be 90, to me is crazy. And it kind of just shows me that the the higher rarity versions of cards don't seem as enticing as they once did, right? And they definitely don't sell. Like, I'm just looking at them. They definitely don't sell as well as they once did. There are almost as many listings for collector's rare hydrant as there are for ultra rare hydrant.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is baffling. And I don't have like and I guess like this part isn't supposed to me like I'm not providing a solution yet. I'm merely just going over the issues that we face. So I'm looking at these cards, and when I look at this, I think to myself, I like if hydrant was a rare and then also had a collector's rare, what would it look like? Would the like if hydrant was an accessible, what was a very, very, like if all of these cards, if every single card in this set was $5 or cheaper, because in this example of how the OCG sets are formatted, if all of these cards other than the collector's rares and the prismatic secret rares and the quarter century rares are $5, what are these sets worth, and is anyone buying them? And I truly can't imagine they could be. When I see the collector's rares and the premium rarities of so many of these cards be so cheap already, I just don't know. I guess it just doesn't connect for me. But I feel like I've been rambling for a while without either of you talking, so somebody please either
Well,
agree with me or disagree with me.
I thought some of this was going to also just go into
Yeah.
um how we don't think the OCG way would translate well over here.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
definitely don't. I mean, like, I think we already see the high
and
rarity cards not be worth much
no,
relative to the low rarity ones anyway. So
right, so
if
that's where
yeah,
I want to go more
hmm
into like how I don't think the OCG way really works here, and again, this kind of goes to a huge reason is that people would buy fewer products. In Japan, which is very small, um, the money Konami has to make there doesn't go back into anything. They don't really have tournaments that are big that often, whereas here in TCG and Europe, like TCG, which is Europe, the Americas, um, we have tournaments basically every month, right?
YCSs are not cheap. Just
And
for the record, like
so
events of that scale are
between
not
that
cheap.
they
Yeah,
are it is very expensive,
yeah,
and then also the now if when they streaming is extremely expensive because you have to
yeah,
hire a company to do it, and
yeah.
Konami will hire a company to try and do a good job. It is very expensive. Um,
And it looks nice. I
uh,
will say it looks nice.
yeah,
I appreciate the effort and the
the,
production value that goes into it.
there are things that our Konami TCG has to be able to fund in order to make money to do that, whereas that is not the case for Japan.
Like
And
they're
so
so like yes, like they're not funding, if we combine the North American, Latin American, and European YCSs, right? Like how many YCSs are there a year? Is it 20 now or a little bit under? I feel like it might even be 20.
I think
I
Maybe
it's
20 is a
less than
little,
20.
maybe it's less, maybe
I
it's
think
like
20 is probably a
12 to
little bit
15
too.
maybe,
Well, okay, so at
something like
that point,
that.
are we looking at like WCQ Nationals,
Oh,
WCQ State Championships?
yes.
Like,
Well,
you know,
I would argue that, yeah,
no,
I would
exactly. So
probably.
we also have to look at like
Oh, there's a
all the
lot.
other. So there's
Yeah,
no, but like there's other organized play programs as well. While
yeah,
they may not be particularly expensive, like there are people that are coming up with these ideas and they are paid for
yeah.
their time.
And
You
even
know what I
like
mean? Like,
regionals, just like I know the cost
yeah,
associated is lower than a YCS, but like yes, there are far, far, far fewer things like that, and it's like the money for these have to come from somewhere, right?
yeah.
Like, and I know like yes, the entry fee, haha, but like
the interview
that
is
does not
basically just
cover
like yeah, yeah.
that does not cover it.
The amount of
I
money they
don't
take on
like
entry fee does not cover basically anything. I can tell you that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I
Especially
can't
when they're
go into
giving so
I,
much
I do
product
not
for
feel
entry.
comfortable going into specifics of
Yeah,
how
of
much it
course.
actually costs, but it is an
Yeah.
extravagant amount
Yeah.
to
Which I
do
will
a
say,
YCS.
let's just give some background of that. You worked on a card game. Like you were a lead designer for a card game for Argent Saga. So you
Sure.
have had experience with this specifically. This
I
is
I
not
have
this is not
with
you making
hosting
something
events.
up. This
Well,
is like,
not
yeah.
not only for hosting events, but also for getting a card game made. So I know how much it costs,
Yes.
and I know how much art costs. Art. So that was just another thing before I go into more of like why the OC structure doesn't work. Art is so expensive. It is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It was most of our cost to for anything. Like getting the cards printed is like one thing, and if you print in like higher amounts, obviously you get a like a discount the more you print, but the amount you have to spend on art is so absurd. And it could be um we hired a magic artist, and for because we really wanted to have like at least one magic artist on the game to do it, and for just one card it was like $1,000 just for one card. And now can you
Okay.
imagine?
Let's clip that. Somebody clip that, please. So we stop getting that. Like, that is, I understand not every single card has that cost associated with it, but
No, no,
that
but
is
and
like,
now, like, if you have, like, a team of artists, you have to pay them, and if you
yes, no,
and
I
if they're
agree.
not on staff, you have to outsource them,
Yep.
and, um, it is just a crazy amount. There are other costs. People are like, "Oh, it's just cardboard. It's
It
just
is
paper."
not.
No, it's
There's
more than
so
that. There's so
much
much
going
more,
into it.
that going into it, and even if you wanna go into it, like, into starting to, like, into, like, the philosophical questions of, like, what is art? Do you consider Yu-Gi-Oh cards art? Like, I kind of do. I think, like, people, like I think also, like, if you look at, like, giant cards, those are, like, forms of art. Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards have art on them. They are forms of art. They're not just pieces of cardboard. They are more than that. But I digress. Back
Yeah.
to
I did want to
OCG.
just give the context for people that didn't know that Jeff was intimately involved with the development and distribution of a card game. So I you know, I hate to play this card, no pun intended, but he has significantly more knowledge than almost everyone talking about this issue does, which is also why it rubs me the wrong way when people kind of just dismissed almost everything he said about it, as if he didn't know what he was talking about. When it's like, you know more than what, which maybe we should have led with that. Maybe that was like the first thing we should have said. Maybe
Maybe,
I
yeah,
didn't even think about it. I'll
yeah.
be honest with you. Until you started
Because
talking
like
about it, I didn't even remember because
because
it's not
also
something
like
you usually talk about.
we use the biggest printing company in the US,
Yeah,
and Konami also got cards printed there. So we got to go see and see how cards are made and how they're printed, and so like we got I do know how everything works, what the costs are from artist and design all the way to the people at the printers. So like yeah,
it's not cheap.
no,
It ain't
no, it's
cheap.
not cheap. Some things could be considered cheap. Like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably because they print on such mass volumes will get a much bigger price break.
Yeah, but we don't
But
have that
still,
information, and I don't want
we
to
don't have.
speculate on it. Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
right.
just whatever
That,
whatever it
yeah.
ends up being. Basically, the moral is the people saying it's just cardboard, it's not expensive. Like, that's just such a gross oversimplification.
There are way too many other factors going into
Yeah.
everything when it comes to producing these. Like the
Hey,
margin is it's so
let's.
thin for everyone involved as well, where it's like they have to do it in volume, right? And then when you
Uh-huh.
get to the end, you like let's say you get to like the local gaming store, that is where like the brunt of it should come from because they have so many other overheads and everything else associated. It's like why shouldn't they make money? And then if everything was just cheap, it's never at volume, and then it's just not justifiable for anyone to produce at all. Like it's not on the what do you call it? Like I get like I'm looking at random things in my room. I'm like a box of tissues or something. It's like how many boxes of tissues are produced. Like that's why the cost is cheap. The margin is almost non-existent. Like it's basically just from production. Everything else, you don't have to market a box of tissues, right? Like like that's like probably like the
Marketing
big
is a
thing,
crazy
right?
one. I want to talk about that. If you don't mind me, can I
Marketing
just
is.
like, I'm going to step
Do
on
you
your
want to?
toes here, Bowden. I want to just
No.
say how marketing is wild to me for stuff like this, because it was so jarring to see, like, the first information comes out about the Rarity Collection and they mention X cards, and somebody goes, hey, all of these cards were in the Japanese one, and it's the same set size except Maxi, and Maxi is banned, so it's probably just the whole Japanese set except Maxi. Like somebody posts that maybe like an hour after it gets announced. And then everybody looks at it and they go, that's probably accurate. And then everybody in the community and on social media about Yu-Gi-Oh for the last however many months have been operating under the assumption the set will be this. And then the reveals come out from the content creators and the set is that. It is exactly what everybody's been talking about for literally 5 months.
Hmm.
And then we see somebody in the comments go, "Wow, I can't believe X card made it into this product." And I'm just like, "What?"
Yeah,
Like
people at
what?
my
Like
local
where?
industry were
Like
also like
I
that.
know,
Yeah.
and it's the kind of thing is like I know not everyone is in tune with everything, and the argument is, well, you're a sorry, I just chuckled at the thought of me saying professional Yu-Gi-Oh player. Anyways, you're like you do this all the time, whatever, and then I think, yeah. But that person's posting comments on YouTube about Yu-Gi-Oh! So they probably also do this a lot, and like it just baffles me like how far reaching marketing has to get to really have people understand to the point that, and again, I am sure I have not opened any of the product myself yet. I'm sure there's a reason for this, whether it was the lighting or the camera angles, but so many of the people opening the sets in the early streams just couldn't tell what the rarities were. Like that was bizarre, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that was to the point that now if you look at the official Facebook page, like the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game TCG official page, there are like
Oh yeah, yeah.
guides on how to tell what the
Identify the
rarities
rarities.
are, and I just look at it and it's just I don't want to like I look at it and I go, what does this mean? Like like again, maybe it'll make more sense when I open these packs for myself, but like surely and again, like God, I hope I don't open a pack and go, what is this? Because that'd be embarrassing. Where I just if you open a pack and you pull one of the new like etched like collector's rares, to look at it and not know it's like a higher rarity. I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore, I guess. Especially when like the rarities were detailed extensively in the initial marketing as well. Like the very first thing they posted, they said, there's ultra super secret, the new ultimate, the new collector's rare, the platinum secret rare, which looks really weird, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. And quarter century secret rare. And people have just been posted. I've just seen people posting on social media after opening packs of like, what is this? And I'm just like, what's happening? Like, how much more information needs to be out there? Like, I felt like the information like is out there, and just how like I don't know. That ended up supposed to be about marketing, but it just baffles. Like you have to do so much marketing for people to understand what your product is, I guess. Unless
Mm.
people are really, really, really dialed into every detail about your brand, it is so expensive to get people to know what your products are or what they look like or what the purpose is. And it's like,
So
I don't
before
know.
we go on,
Yeah.
I think Pokemon is actually a really big offender of that because they have so many
Oh.
different rarities, and a lot of them, I think I could be wrong, so someone correct me. Like, don't have like official names, or they're all like nicknamed different things. So like listing Pokemon is sometimes a nightmare because like the different rarities and different names, and it's kind of crazy. I think Pokemon has like a big problem with that. Um, but I really want to get back to
Hmm.
how the OCG model probably does not translate well
Hmm.
into the TCG. Um, so again, just kind of restarting, people would definitely buy fewer products because Japan is very small. The amount of money Konami makes there doesn't really have to go back into anything like big events or paying staff at events and stuff like that. Um, streaming. Oh my God, also have cat problems. Hold on, he's attacking my arm. Uh, and it becomes a also I think there's also a huge cultural thing. Um, so in Japan, I am unfortunately obsessed with gacha games, and gacha games are a ginormous industry in Japan. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically just like a system where you play like basically a mobile game, and basically end up spending money on like fictional characters and collecting characters and stuff like that. And you basically like, open packs in the game to pull characters. A big one right now is like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. Those are huge ones, and they make millions and millions of
I
dollars.
must self
Eh,
report. I started playing a Mega Man one a couple months ago, but
Oh,
continue.
I know that one. I see that one all the
Uh,
time. Yeah.
it's yeah. It's I'm not
Uh,
proud of
Um,
it.
but a lot of this money comes from Japan, and the model that they use, they can get away with having like lower rarities and higher rarity versions because they are more likely to buy packs because of in their like culturally it's like just very big, like that gotcha model of kind of like quote unquote gambling and seeing what you can get. Um, and something over here is when gotcha games come over into the global version, which is usually like the Americas, basically anywhere outside of Asia. Uh, they do significantly worse almost always
Yeah,
because of that cultural difference, and people will see like, why would I spend money on fictional characters, or like opening packs for like digital things that like don't really matter,
and I
and
think
they
it's
will.
funny. Probably the best, probably like the best performing mobile game is Pokemon Go, because
Mhm.
that is not how the monetization works at all. Like
Yeah, it's
you
not.
don't
Yeah.
like pay $10 and like a random Pokemon appears. Like you play the game and the money is for other things, which I think are like more tangible at least than like random chance of getting certain items or
Mhm.
characters.
So yeah. Anyway,
Another
it's more acceptable for in Japan for for that to happen, and it's definitely not here. People are much more unlikely. And so anyway, back to like the gotcha thing. Once they go global, there is a significantly higher chance that these games go end of service because people do not spend or pay as much to keep them going. But then the game will still keep going on in Japan because they still do that, and the same
No,
thing
exactly.
translates
No,
to
because
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Japan for games like that, it's just like even if Japan is big for that sort of industry, right? Like trading cards, gacha games, what have you. It'll so you just have to make up 10% of like $1 billion market or something for like your game. You have like Magic,
Mhm.
Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, it's whatever. And then you go to Japan, you have all your like the other stuff just like floating around. 10% of $1 billion market. You get to USA, and that's 10% of that market. It's not going to be $1 billion market, right? Like it's going to be a smaller market. You now have to make up 30% of that market. You have to adjust accordingly. That's just what they've done. They've adjusted for Western culture. That's solely what's happened,
Mhm.
right? Like the market share is just the big three: Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. That's it. You go to Japan, it's just probably more online, right? Like what was it, Ryan? When we went in like 2018, they still had a lot of like Duel Master and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of games that just
There
function like
were like a
Shadowverse, everything else.
million like Dragon Ball. It was called Dragon Ball Heroes, and it was an
Yeah.
arcade
Yeah.
game
Yep.
that functioned like almost like a dual terminal like Yu-Gi-Oh
It's
had for
basic.
a while.
There's something
It's
I would
basically a
like to
dual
bring up
terminal. Yeah.
in a little bit from now, so keep that one
Okay.
in mind. And it's
Yeah.
something to do about Dragon Ball.
Because I'm not
Yeah.
I'm
But
not quite
basically,
finished
like
yet. So.
like yeah, like what when you go to a place like Japan, like specifically because I think like when you go to other Asian regions, it's a little bit more skewed. Like Konami didn't have Chinese distribution or even organized play
For a long
in
time.
China until like for like the last like year and a half, 2 years or something. And now they have simplified Chinese cards in China now, and it's like a big thing there, and it's huge, crazy
Hmm.
stuff. But yeah, like so when that happens, like you do have to see adjustments. That's just how business works. It's just how like everything works. There's some other stuff as well, but it's just so weird, man. Like I'm trying to read through my messages with people that work in the industry to see like okay wait one second, OCG thing. So historical. Okay, so like it's why Schwartz 300 yen a booster pack because Yu-Gi-Oh does it, because Pokemon does it. right? Like that's like if you want the OCG model, it's like, okay, so what is the MSR, the traditional MSRP for a booster pack in like North America? And like the price is pretty, it's parallel like among every other game, right? It's like 650. That's like the standard.
For Australian, not for American.
Sure, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
I was,
sorry,
I was
sorry,
gonna
my,
say,
my,
whoa.
my country,
America,
not USA yet. It is in
American
Australia,
packs
it's
are
650.
like $4 to $5.
Yeah.
But that consistent among, like, it's consistent
That
among Pokemon, Magic, and everything
yes,
else,
I think
right?
every
so.
game,
No,
yes.
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like you're just like following the industry path, right? So it's like if you make the set worse and you're still charging the same, like does that translate? Like the cost
Eh,
of a booster box is still going to be the same, but like your EV is going to be significantly worse. Like it just doesn't
yeah. Yes. So this
resonate.
this goes into next about the besides like the cultural differences of why Japan would use this model and people outside Japan are less likely, is one, you would need to buy fewer boxes. And if you have to buy fewer boxes to get the card you need, that means that the company takes in less money. And if the company takes in less money, that means other things will start to be affected. Um,
Do you know
and
Magic the Gathering
or
is considered to be expensive in Japan? By the way, just throwing that in there.
I believe it.
Yep.
So that's point one, is that you have to buy fewer boxes, which means less money for the company because you need it's easier to get the cards you need. Two, what happens also is that no one would buy boxes and only buy singles because why would you spend money on a product if nothing in it is worth
That
anything
is
except
what
luxury cards?
I want to
Um,
get. Sorry, my cat is.
and because
Keep going.
and that's where again that translates well into a like Asian or Japanese society, but very much not here. No one would buy that, and you see that even right now with current Yu-Gi-Oh. Whenever sets come out, if a set ends up not doing very well, no one will spend money on them and only buy the singles, and then boxes end up sitting on shelves, and it fucks over stores because they have product that no one wants. And this has happened all throughout the last year of Yu-Gi-Oh for 90% of the sets. So we've seen that this happens, that no one buys a box and will just buy the singles, and then things are really cheap, and the high rarity stuff doesn't matter. Like the high rarity stuff is not what sells the set, and we've seen that for the Battles of Legend set, right? Is that what
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that's a whole kind of other thing. I guess, which I do want to get back to, but the thing with the whole like people don't buy, won't buy product. I guess the issue I have with a lot of these arguments, a ton of the arguments are, I don't buy product right now because it's so unlikely for me to get a card that's worth anything, yada yada yada, or a card I want, yada yada yada. If they did it the OCG way, I would buy more product because then I would get cards because they're easier to get. No, you wouldn't. I just want to put that out there.
I
No,
would
you would
I would
not.
say maybe I think the more casual
you
people
know,
would be more likely to do it, but in general, as time go on, it would skew
yeah,
to like very people who buy boxes would go drastically lower.
yeah. It's like the argument I keep saying is,
Well, the
which,
amount of boxes in total would
yeah,
sell less.
the argument I keep saying is, if SP is a super rare, I would buy boxes to get an SP. To which I would
Why?
say, why would you do
Why?
that? You would just buy, like,
Go on TC Player, buy it for
you would just,
$7.
yeah, like, were people like,
Do you know what's funny? Again, go back to another card game,
mhm,
Battle Spirit Saga. The
yeah,
boxes are worth dirt. The sets
let's,
are worth dirt. So you either buy a case and you still don't get a guaranteed master set. Like it's almost a master set, right? 4 copies of everything, so it's just play sets, right?
dude,
You buy a
this,
case, it
this,
will cost you $600. That's below cost as well. I don't even know what the MSRP is meant to be, but every store is selling below cost, right? If you buy each individual single, and I'm talking like everything, 4 copies of each on TCG Player, I think it's like $200, like 1/3 the price. Like it's insane to think about, and that's just what would happen in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like stores would just crack, they would just sell everything. You'd get like a master set, and like it would be good for a little bit, but then it's like stores that aren't working on like such thin margins, like stores that have large play spaces, like your local gaming store or something, they are not making enough money to sustain because it is not correct for you to purchase a booster box. And that's the same can be said now. But like obviously when a set is bad, like a set is really bad. When a set is good, a set is really, really good. And maybe you do want to gamble. Maybe you do want to buy just a couple packs and just be, silly with your friends. Like that's completely fine. But like, it just doesn't work, man. We've seen it in other games. Everyone argues Digimon. Digimon's dead. Uh,
I just okay. And again,
I'm sorry, Ryan. I had to chime in.
I know. And a lot of this is also we are not presenting any solutions. All we're saying is why X wouldn't work, and they say yes, it would. Okay, so let's try to create some tweaks to how these work. What we think would make product feel better to open, and maybe help the value of these things. And something we talk about a lot. We talk about the rarity distribution of cards. And one thing I remember is when they revealed the sneak peek promo for this set, and it was one of the Horus cards, and you posted on Twitter, "Oh my god, this is so bad. You only play one of this or zero of this.
Or 0 of this.
Why
yes.
would they make this the secret rare?" And then somebody says, "Isn't it better they made it the secret rare? Now it'll be cheap." And I just look at that and I'm like, well, with the model we have now, if the secret rares are cheap, then there's no reason to buy product. Unfortunately, how product kind of works now is it's very top heavy, and the value of a product, and that's kind of how it always has to be though, is like, well, not always has to be. We'll get into that. Where like the value of these products are the top end secret rares. Because if you want a low end card, why would you buy a product? Like why would you buy packs?
Why would you buy packs to hopefully get that? When
why would you buy packs to hopefully get a Dumatef Blessing of Horus when you can go online and buy one for cheaper than one pack?
Right? And
right?
the only reason would be, guess what it is? You like opening packs.
Yes.
And that is an entirely different can of worms than to talk about.
The value comes from expensive cards existing, right? And I guess my argument and all of our arguments are just expensive versions of cards that can otherwise be obtained cheaper, with very few exceptions, I don't think is enough to make product worth opening in this market. And I think like if you just look at how much some of these cards cost, I guess for me it's all relative to the price of a pack or the price of a box or the price of a case versus how frequently these cards appear, right?
Yeah, I was going to get into that next, but you can go ahead.
A box contains 2 secret rares. If you're a number that we decided on earlier was $60 to $70 for a box is healthy, I guess, right? Is like acceptable. So as a consumer,
I think also you want to look at like the other similar card games who do, I think, 24 packs.
Yeah, a lot of those games are more expensive for boxes, I think.
So let's take a look at, I would say like the 4th biggest card game is obviously One Piece right now. One Piece is very hot, and a lot of people like to bring up One Piece when comparing it to Yu-Gi-Oh prices.
A box of One Piece,
One Piece doesn't count because supply hasn't met demand. Like you cannot get One Piece product. It's really rough.
Yeah, it is hard. There are lots of like underlying things that can affect prices. So a box of this Kingdom of Intrigue, which I think is the newest set, seems to be around $80. And this is for something that's like really hot and high in demand, and like Bowden said, you might not be able to meet demand right now with production. But
hold on.
yeah, I think
the rescue aces are assembling. Sorry, I just heard a siren go off. All right, okay, it looks like they're done. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about what a price of a box should be worth. Or I think most stores are spending between, I don't know how much they're ordering, because the more you order, obviously, the more you get a discount. But Yeah, but we'll say probably like $60. They might spend $55-$60 on a box, and then sell it
Yeah,
for
that's probably close. Yeah.
the day of. My locals will usually sell boxes for all. So I have like 4 different locals around me, and so I would say between $70 and $80. That is how much they're selling a box for the day on release.
Okay, that's reasonable. But yeah, so when you open a box, right? And you're looking at, okay, so I spent $70-$80 on a box. Let's even could be as low as 60. And I go, okay, there are 2 secret rares, there are 4 ultra rares, and then the rest of it, 9 times out of 10 is sawdust,
Yes.
right? Like, with some exceptions being Magnamut and Drew's Worm and like Sheeran, uh, I can't even. I would have to be really reaching to find more examples in recent memory.
I
The
think the
rest of it,
Bystials are the biggest
the
offenders.
rest of it is sawdust, right? Super rares and commons. A lot of the time, how the current product structure works are almost the same value because they're so easy to get. And so you really only have 6 cards in your box that are worth anything, which I will say feels bad. It feels bad when I'm opening a box and only 6 of my cards have value, right? Like that feels bad. And man, how bad would it feel if I opened my box and none of my cards had value, which can even sometimes happen here, right? And I think that's the problem, and it's where the disparity comes when your product is so heavily weighted around the 2 secret rares. You shouldn't have them be so lopsided.
Yeah.
And by that I mean a card like TG Rocket Salamander should not be a secret rare. It should not
Mm-hmm.
be the same odds of pulling it as SP Little Knight. And it should not take up the slot in your pack that an SP Little Knight could occupy,
Hmm.
because that feels awful, right? And I'm not saying that every single set can have the 10 best cards in the entire set be the secret rare. Maybe I am saying 10 is too many secret rares. I think that's not an unpopular opinion. I think that's
Okay,
something people have thrown
I
around.
would like to
Mhm.
keep that thought. Keep that thought,
Sure,
but
yeah.
continue though.
Yeah.
I would like to raise an argument.
Yes.
Well,
So
I was gonna
when
say I think they should go less into secret rares. And so if they took away 2 secret rares and then created 2 more ultra rares,
like it
I
used to
think
be for a long time, like we used to only have 8, we had eight secret rares per pack for a
yeah.
long time,
Mm.
right?
I think they should go more into the ultras, make better cards ultra rare, and lower the amount of secret rares. That way, should alleviate some of the top endedness of sets, and also creating more of a middle ground. Which I really think with the ultra rares, those are like the cards I consider more middle.
Yes.
Um, these are the cards that I think should help stabilize a set and how much it's worth to make it like for stores worth having. Um, I think that's where you want that kind of middle ground. I think that would help. Um, like alleviate that. So less secret rares,
But like
more
at
ultra
that
rares.
point, why not just have the 10 ultra rares be 10 playable cards?
Well,
Like
that's so
10 good.
Ultra rares there's like 14 ultras, I think,
yeah.
isn't
There's
there?
so many ultras
Well,
now.
no, but like why not just make like the cards that are harder to pull the better ones, and then like your EV of a box is just gonna be like, well, worst cases I'm pulling playable cards. I don't like if the argument is like we don't want more cards like TG Salamander, then why not just make every card secret rare? And then like it should fix itself,
So
surely.
that's what I'm saying, and that's where. So I guess like I would prefer that. My argument is the good cards should all be the higher rarity cards. And a bunch of
Hmm.
people are going to say that will price people out. My counter argument to that is it makes packs worth opening. So people actually open them and it gets more cards in circulation. The problem I have with the model right now is that the way the sets are distributed, it's like the odds of you spending $70 on a box and pulling $4 of cart, that is crazy. That's even a thing that can happen. The fact that you could not even pulling the 2 worst secret rares, you could
Mm-hmm.
pull TG Rocket Salamander and you could pull like a mid-secret rare. You can pull like the Labyrinth
Like
Butler.
Visa's Samsara,
Yeah, which
just
is
the Butler or
$10.
something. Yeah,
And then you can pull the best ultra rare, and it's Typhon, and it's like $15-$17. And it's like
Mhm.
you just got $20 from
and
your
you're still
box.
behind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
still
So,
because the rest of it has almost
if
no
we go
value.
back to looking at Duelist Nexus, if you were to spend that measly like $40 on a box, there is no combination of secret rares you could pull to even meet that $40.
Yeah, that is crazy. Which okay,
The
so
top end, so you have Revolution Synchron at like $21
yeah,
and Dark Corridor
yeah.
like 14.
Which, to get ahead of the bad press, the argument that some people would say is, then if you make a card like SP Little Knight a super rare, you'll have an expensive super rare, and then you'll add value to your product, which is sort of true. We've seen it sort of be true with stuff like Magnamut, which is still an anomaly to me.
I think
But
SP would probably be cheaper than Magnamut.
I agree. I think it would too.
Just by virtue of like Magnamut was a 3 of, right? And it's
Yes.
So
just like
Magnamut is not only a part of a deck, it is also part of 90% of side decks. Whereas
Yes.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Which is
but like
weird.
SP would probably be on par with like Dark, where Dark, did find its way to be like $5 on
That's
occasion.
true. Yes, SP probably
right?
$5. And
But
I will say, Dark
I
being
think because
$5
I
would
think
not really.
I think it would be like a $10 super rare.
Yeah, I agree.
And would that improve the EV of that's interesting. I wish we'd considered this earlier so I could have had that math worked out. This is a lot of ifs, obviously. This is a lot of if it was a super rare and this is the price it would be. I agree. It would be cheaper than Magnamut because it is a one of. And also something that is interesting to look at, which I think is like something I want to bring up that I think a lot of people don't always think about is sometimes we see one ofs be more expensive than three ofs, which is really bizarre.
Which
because
I think that's also really bizarre. Yes.
which I'm gonna explain why I think that is. So we see Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, right? This is a card. Every deck that wants to play this card is gonna play 3 of it. This card is $50 something. Let's see, 50 almost on the dot. Plus shipping, $55. Okay, this card's $55, maybe even like almost 60. And then we have SP Little Knight, which is $95 at the moment. Do we think there are actually like, so how many decks are playing Wanted? Is it just Rescue Ace? Maybe. I think there's more decks that could play it than just Rescue Ace.
So if we're talking about like recently, the Makanko deck plays it.
Oh, okay, cool. So do we think there are 3 times, so like every deck that's going to play 3 Wanted is also probably going to play a Little Knight? Do we think there are more than 3 times as many decks that want Little Knight and not Wanted than that just want Wanted? I think the answer is no. I think there are probably more cumulative copies of Wanted being played over SP Little Knight. However, I think this falls into the same category, in my opinion, as like Appaloosa and Access Code, in that a bunch of people, us included, as we've mentioned earlier, do not have unlimited money. We have to budget what we can spend our money on, and SP is an investment that a lot of decks only need 1 copy of. So I think a lot of people will weigh, okay, well, the deck I'm playing right now can use SP. I can spend $90 and I can get an SP, and it will improve the deck I'm playing right now. Or I can buy Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils and Diabellstar and all the cards that go with it and a whole new deck. And I think it like the engines like that are used in different decks. I think the entire package is sort of like the cost, if that makes sense. Like, people are priced out of buying 3 copies of a card. And then Little Knight, a card you only need 1 of, people tolerate buying 1 copy of it. Therefore, you see more people willing to buy it, if that made any sense at all.
I think some of it went over my head. I'm not gonna lie.
The example I will go back to, I guess, is Pot of Prosperity and Appaloosa. And I understand there's a lot of differences in how popular the sets were, how much was opened, yada, yada, yada. But to boil it down, Pot of Prosperity, if you wanted to play a Starlight, you needed 3 of it. I think Pot of Prosperity was played at a much higher rate than Appaloosa. And if you wanted to play it,
Yes.
you had to have 3 copies.
Yes.
So if this Starlight Rare is going to be $500-$600, you got to buy 3. You're spending $1,500 to maybe even $2,000 to get a playset. Or Appaloosa, I only need 1. Well, I can spend $1,000 on that Apple. I mean, many people cannot, obviously, but to somebody who is buying these top rarity cards, there is a universe. They look at Prosperity and they go, well, I can't spend $1,000 for each Prosperity because I need 3, but I can spend $1,000 on 1 Appaloosa, and that is my Yu-Gi-Oh purchase this year. And I think like that's where on a smaller level we see these extra deck 1-ofs become more expensive than these engine 3-ofs because there is less cost. Like 1 copy of Wanted does not get you anywhere. You need 3.
Yes.
So a lot of people that cannot afford the 3 just don't buy any. 1 copy of SP Little Knight is significantly better than 0 copies.
Okay,
If that makes
I understand
sense.
what you're
I know that was a
saying now,
very
yes.
gross
You know what's
oversimplification.
funny? I feel like we saw this. Jeff, do you remember when Solar Morning went to 2 and then the price of it increased?
Maxi. When Maxi got limited, they all went up because people didn't want to spend $100 each, or people didn't want to spend $200 each on an ultimate rare. But when it got limited, you can spend $300 on 1.
Yeah.
It is funny how that works sometimes.
Ridiculous. I love it.
So, random thing. What was the last set that had 8 secret rares?
I should know this.
Because the more I think about it, the more I think a lot of this would get solved is just by you get like I originally I said you cut down to 8 secret rares, then increase the number of ultra rares. There are already they choose a lot of shit ultra rares.
Yeah.
So now I think it's just you don't increase the number of ultra rares, you only increase or decrease the amount of secret rares, and then the cards you would put secret, you put them in the ultra rare slot, so there are more better ultra rares to pull, and then there are less secret rares in the pool, so you have a higher chance of pulling things. So that's what I'm trying to remember what the last set with 8 secret rares was.
Yeah,
To
I'll
try
get
and
that for you in a
remember
second.
what the prices were back then, because I really do think that would help a lot, and not have these $100 secret rares that make people
Okay.
priced out and really unhappy.
Rising Rampage was 8. Let's see. Dark Neostorm. I think this is about when the change happened. Dark Neostorm was also 8. Let's see. Oh wait, Rising Rampage was the one after Dark Neostorm. I was going backwards. Chaos Impact is the next one. Is Chaos Impact where it changed?
Ignition
Nope.
Assault had 8.
I think it might have been Eternity Code. It might have been Eternity
It was Eternity Code.
It was Eternity Code? Okay.
Yeah, so Ignition Assault, this was this had, let's look at these ultra rares.
Which one thing I want to say, kind of to continue on your line of thinking, I personally
this had Lightning Storm in it.
Yeah. I also think somebody wrote this on one of the I don't remember if it was one of your tweets maybe, that I was like, that can't be true. And then I checked and I went, oh my God. 50% of a set is foil now.
Oh yeah.
Which is wild to me. There's 50 commons and then all the rest are foil. And I understand the reasoning to I understand every pack has a holo is like a marketing thing. I think that has now run its course. And with 14, is it 14 ultra rares?
Yes.
With 14 ultra rares and 10 secret rares and 20 something super rares that are 1 per pack, it's like that, I think, is why we see these cards have literally no value. And I understand and then the only super rares that end up having value are the absolute mandatory must play staples, like Twin Twisters. I believe that was the first set that had a super in every pack. It was Breakers of Shadows.
It was.
And
I
Twin
remember.
Twisters was like $10.
Yep. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
obviously that card when it came out was just it was in literally 100% of people's decks. Like that was literally if you don't have to like you had to have that card. And I don't think Magnum quite reached that level, but maybe you could argue it did. That it was played in almost every deck for a while, right? And
Hmm.
if Magnet was a secret rare, what price do you think it would have been?
I think
Because
the same thing about like Fenrir. If Fenrir was a secret,
yeah,
what would have been?
which like it's interesting because $20 is so much higher than a normal super rare, right? Like
Hmm.
so astronomically higher. Like super rares are generally $1 or cheaper, and Magnemite was literally $20. Does that mean a secret rare Magnemite would have been $190,000? Probably not, right? Like it probably would have just been like $80. You know, like it probably
Right.
would have just been like a regular, like good secret rare price, right? Maybe it would have been like Phantasme level, like maybe it approaches $100, right? Maybe, but it is still baffling to me that Magnum was so expensive for what it was, despite only being a super rare. But I think that just kind of goes to like the card quality and like maybe at the end of the day, little tweaks can do a little bit, but if the card quality just isn't there,
Yeah.
these, why are you buying? Because I think that's something that like if the card quality isn't there and the cards are not good, you
So something
like
I'm looking at right now with like these sets, like the had 8 secret rares, a lot of them had like 2 good cards and the rest were really bad. So like
yeah,
even if you did revert to the old, 8 secret rares in a in a set, if a bad set comes out, it still goes to the same problem of this sits on shelves because no one's going to bother buying it or opening it. Um, which also goes back to like in all of our previous podcasts where like we complain about why are they making these really terrible cards ultra rare when they could make this decent card in the set that's a common or a super rare ultra rare and then add to some value of the set so
yeah.
the set doesn't end up being $40.
Yes, like
I think they
why were Ken and Gen common? Like what's the point of having 26 super rares in your set if Ken and Gen are going to be commons? Right? Like what is the point of having 26 super
yeah.
rares in your set if Rescue Ace Preventer is a common? What's the point?
So I think, I mean, I can answer some of that, and I think
Sure.
it's because they do that, and so they can reprint it later as a foil and say, here's
Yeah,
your upgrade.
which yeah, yes, which is
And
one
because we
step
talked
forward,
about
two
that
steps
more.
back. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there that's a good point. That is almost certainly. Yeah, like literally
and
they make Preventer. There was one, I think the only
um,
one that
like
really
emergency, any other card in the
and
game that has emergency text would have been an ultra or secret rare. We've seen that
yeah,
in like how many archetypes. So
yeah,
that's crazy
that
that that
Mhm.
card
is.
was such a common.
And would the set have been if Preventer is an ultra rare and Emergency is a secret rare? Does Duelist Nexus perform better?
I think
Almost
if just both
certainly,
of them
right?
were ultra rares, it would have
Almost,
performed
yeah.
better.
Probably.
Almost
Yeah.
They
certainly.
they don't even have to be secret rares. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if it was ultra emergency was ultra rare, it would probably be like $60, probably similar to
I think that's a bit much, but I think it would
really.
be.
I'm thinking of the field spells for all these other decks that
Oh,
like
oh!
were
If it was
popular in
secret rare, I,
83 of
I thought you
that were
said if it
secret
was
rare.
ultra rare. I was like, I
No,
don't
no,
think it
no.
would be.
No. If it was a secret rare, probably like $60. If it was ultra rare, I would say probably what like 20 or something.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
like
Ultra, I think it could be higher. It's a 3 of in the quote unquote best deck currently.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it could definitely be a
yeah,
lot higher.
yeah.
But if you
Which
look at some of
like
these, so like you look at the ultra rares for uh Duelist Nexus, we have an unplayable Makanko card. You do not even play this in Makanko.
yeah, which
You
which
have
Lakonko just won a YCS and they didn't play that card, right?
no, you never played this card.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah,
no, I
absolutely
I
not.
noticed that. I was looking and I was like, wait, they don't play this one, and I'm looking at the quarter century like,
You have
yes,
two
disappointment.
unplayable Tistina cards. So
yeah,
there's already 3 cards. Then you have
Mm.
a Altergeist, which is again like I think this card is like good in Altergeist, but Altergeist is basically unplayable. So you have
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 cards that like are just completely. If you just switch these with some decent cards, you would have made the set infinitely
Even like
better.
Mirror
And
Sword Knight, Chimera Fusion, all like, and
I think Mirror Sword Knight would have been a good ultra rare.
yeah, no, I agree. That's what I'm saying. And again, this is gonna be, people are gonna be like, you're making cards more expensive, and it's just
Yes,
like
but
I personally, when I see a
uh,
super rare of Mirror Sword Knight and it's $1, if you made it an
Mm-hmm.
ultra rare and it was $5, I understand that's a big increase. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think anybody is priced out of a Chimera deck because a playset of Mirror Sword Knight costs $12 extra.
right, and this goes back to the sentiment of I keep saying Konami needs to do better at balancing sets and not having them
They
top
are
end heavy
so
or
top heavy, and
they,
it feels bad to open
or
product when they're
so
so top
so
heavy.
by making things like emergency preventer ultra rare, you make this not very good set that you can buy for $40 or $45 into a set that might be worth actually buying or spending $60 on, and having a box be relatively normal priced, and without having things go super crazy and having your deck be worth $1 billion and having to spend $1 billion to build a deck. So it is the middle ground where I think everyone wins. And that's what Konami needs to find. And I'm going to yell it right now. Konami needs to find a middle ground. Cards don't need to be $1 billion, and sets don't need to be worth nothing. You can find a way in the middle
Yes.
to make everyone happy. I promise
Yes.
All
you.
right, all
Yes.
right, all right,
Cards
all
don't
right.
need to be $0,
Hear me
but they
out.
shouldn't be $100.
Hear me
Yes.
out. Hear me
Everybody
out. Hear me
everybody
out.
agrees.
I have a crazy suggestion, and I think there is a way to solve everything. We eliminate the deck building sets entirely.
Yes, those
Opinion.
sets are fucking yes. I
Okay.
I think
What
yes.
what do we replace them with? Do we replace them with a structure deck? Do we replace them with the cards that get funneled into core sets? Like, where are we at here?
So can
So
I got a couple of, oh, but you go first, Jeff, but I got a couple of things on
well, I would say
this.
I think this the way they need to be made is needs to be entirely restructured with how many you pull per thing, what the rarities
Mm.
are. I think if you don't get rid of them, they need to be revamped from the entire way out
No, no,
because
no,
they're
for sure, for sure. No, I agree with that, but I think that there is a solution where you just cull the amount of products or you convert, right? Because then you don't have people just like it's like imagine a rescue a structure deck or like a Pokemon style like build and battle deck or something where it's like here's one copy of Hydra. It's essentially just a structure deck anyway.
so I know
I
something that we were talking about before we started the podcast was how they push way too many products, and I think that's a big problem.
mm,
Um, and I think if they consolidated some of that, so you know how they're making like Brothers of Legend, stuff like that. If they just wait and not release these deck build packs and just add them into like these Brothers of Legend set, I think it would be way better. Because not only are you getting new cards, you also get like the reprints and stuff like that. Um, and I think it also helps with a lot of times they put really shit cards in these reprint sets that no one
Oh my
asked for,
god. Yeah.
or they reprint things that have already had like the same rarity and stuff like that. So you will also change that fact where like these reprint sets now have brand new cards that people want also get reprints, and you aren't pushing out 1 billion products and then having products worth $40 or $30 and worth absolutely nothing.
Yeah, which, give me one second. I actually want to pull up the release schedule. That was some keyboard ASMR, I guess. For I learned, fun fact. I learned like 2 days ago. I type at 80 words per minute. What I just typed there was not 80 words per minute, but I learned that as my typing speed, which is in the 90th percentile. So, anyways, as far as just booster pack releases, so not counting structure decks, not counting anything. First, like let's just one of the last so one of the last two talking points that I alluded to in the beginning is just
mhm.
says too many products, which I think a big problem with product right now, as Jeff also mentioned, is too many of them tread the same ground. They can definitely be consolidated into one product, and I think a lot of people would just feel better about it. So let's look at 2023's release schedule complete. Now that we know everything coming out for this whole year, let's start with Amazing Defenders in January. Amir, 3 weeks later, Photon Hypernova. 1 month later, Maze of Memories. Shockingly, 2 months later, Cyberstorm Access. So that was actually, I think, the biggest gap was Maze of Memories, Cyberstorm Access. Maybe there was a structure deck in there. I don't actually remember. But that was the biggest gap, I believe, was 2 months. 1 month after Cyberstorm Access is Wild Survivors. 3 weeks after Wild Survivors is Bowser Legend Monstrous Revenge. 1 month later, Duelist Nexus. 2 weeks later, Legendary Duelist Soul Burning Volcano. Oh, and then we had another 2 month gap between Age of Overlord. And then 2 weeks after Age of Overlord, the Rarity Collection. And then we have, what? I didn't even know this. 2 Valiant Smashers comes out in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
We
I thought
also
this
we
came
also
out
have
in
the Fire King structure.
I thought
deck
this
as
came
well.
out in December. Oh my god. Okay. Why are there 3 sets coming out in 6 weeks?
Yes.
That's wild. How are you meant to keep up with this? Oh my god. This is January. I did not know Valiant Smashers was only 2 weeks after that is wild. And then we have Maze of Millennia in January. Oh, also, never mind. In the middle of all this, in July, we had the reprints of the classic sets. We had, so in between Battles of Legend and Duelist Nexus, again, 2 weeks before Duelist Nexus, we had the reprints of LOB, MRD, Spell Ruler, Pharaoh Servant, and Invasion of Chaos. 5 products on the same day, by the way. Actually insane also. And then there were some structured decks in the middle here. So basically, and there were some speed duel boxes and, other releases. But yes, we had Trap Trick structure deck in February, the Crimson King in late September, so there was a 6-month gap between structure decks. No, 7-month gap between structure decks, and then a 2-month gap, 2.5-month gap. I don't understand that either. Why was there a 7-month gap and then a 2-month gap between structure
Who
decks?
knows?
Yeah.
That might have been a delay. I don't remember.
That's very possible.
There was something.
And I understand. As we discussed earlier, there are a lot of factors that go into distribution and release and whatever, and all these dates get, I'm sure, decided so far in advance. But it's like, I look at this and I go, this is too much. This is a common criticism levied against Magic right now, and how they're like, I saw a graph a little while ago that was very funny to me because my knowledge of Magic is very spotty at best. I have never played it competitively, but I have played casual matches with, like, I'm familiar with the rules, and I've played other card games similar enough to, like, every card game that has turn-based mana, like, you get more mana every turn, like, is derivative of Magic. So, like, I've played other games, so I know how it works. And I know sort of like the culture surrounding it because a number of my friends, also played Magic for a long period of time. So I see a lot of the more competitive players, like, what's happening in Magic, sort of, super TLTR, is a bunch of the competitive players don't like the direction of the game. And the casual players are getting burnt out because there's too much coming out. And I saw a graph a little while ago, and then not even to mention the anniversary set that everybody hated, whatever that ended up. I didn't hear anybody get mad about that after it came out, so I guess no one actually cares, but I don't really know. There was something where it was just showing like how many products were released, and they released like 10 times as many products in 2022 as they had like 10 years prior, like literally 10 times as many. And it was just crazy to see. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, we're getting close. Like 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna count all 5 of the re-releases as one product. I'm not gonna count them as 5 separate products, even though I maybe should. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 booster packs. 12 booster packs, 3 structure decks, and the tins, I guess. So, and then we had the Legendary Collection. If you really, really want to get into, like, Mavens was last year, right? Yeah, Mavens was last year. And we didn't really get one of those types of box sets. Like, we didn't get a Ghost from the Past or Mavens or Eldorado. We didn't get anything like that in 2023. Did no, not a single one. Huh. Interesting. Maybe that's something to look at, to talk about as well. But yeah, so what we have 6, and then Speed Duel. We had how many Speed Duel releases? Was it just 2023? We had 2 and 2 Speed Duel boxes. So that's what, 17, 18 products more if we split apart the throwback 25th anniversary ones. So we're looking at, on average, 1.5 products per month. And in addition to OTS packs, which are not for sale, so that doesn't quite fall into the equation. But we've got 1.5 products per month. That's so much to keep up with, right? Especially
Yes.
when so many of them are reprinting the same cards, which is the other issue I have with the too many products. I feel like so many of the products are cannibalizing each other. Where I've mentioned this in a thing before, where you open, I mean, no one opened this product, obviously, but hypothetically, you open Legendary Duelist 8, right? Or whatever it was. Legendary Duelist 9, whichever one had Droplet in it, the Mako Tsunami one. You open Legendary Duelist Duels from the Deep, and you pull Forbidden Droplet, because you're extremely fortunate and pull the only good card in that set. You pull Forbidden Droplet. Then, you open the tins, and you pull Forbidden Droplet. And then, maybe it's been a year since Droplet specifically. So you open the Rarity Collection and you pull Forbidden Droplet. Another example, you open Lightning Storm in Mavens. Then you open Lightning Storm in the tins. And then you open Lightning Storm in the Rarity Collection. You open Right in Bows of Legend, Monsters Revenge, and Enchantress. Then you open Enchantress and Right in the tins. And it's just, I'm all for cards getting reprints and people who couldn't have them can have them, but it just feels so bad when cards you just got get reprinted. Oh, Droplet was also in it was in Brothers of Legend too, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Droplet's, how many printings does Droplet have now? And again, it's like, I understand that like some of these cards have not been reprinted. Like, I understand there is like some reasoning for getting like, for getting these cards to be the absolute like bottom of their value, but again, why would you buy these products if they reprint the same card 5 times in a row, right? What value are you as a consumer getting from these products? You're not. You're just
No,
buying
I
them
agree.
for
That's why,
dirt on the secondary market.
so all that I think with stuff like that is it is trying to open up the price point for newer players. The issue is like it doesn't solve anything. Like it's very very weird. That's how I feel about the Rarity Collection. When people are like, "Oh man, if this one does well, they're gonna do Rarity Collection 2." And it's like, yeah, what are they gonna reprint? Yeah, you know?
Droplet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. It's like, no, so like I think that that model is not terrible. I think the issue is like it's what Pokemon does, right? Where it's like you'll just have reprints of like generic staples in most products, like you'll have your like maybe not battle VIP pause, but you'll have like the standard stuff that is played in every deck and like that kept cheap, and that's fine. Like your staples are going to be there, and then you alternate depending on what deck you want to play. But I think for Yu-Gi-Oh sets, because you don't have the benefit of like a crazy chase card or like I'm trying to pull this Charizard, like less is gonna get open, less is gonna get ordered. These are just the same sets with like a different reskin, right? Maybe like 10 cards differences. And like it was cool initially. Like I thought the 2020 two tins were really good, and I thought Mama was really good just for like that sort of, hey, like these cards were expensive during COVID. Now they're cheap, they're readily available, it's fine. And apparently that was not enough, so we're just like cycling all the way back again. But
Yes. The last note I actually had was, I do not think the Rarity Collection will change things as much as people think. I think
well, what do they think it's
I
changing?
think a lot of people, a sentiment I've seen a lot of people say, this was also, I think, like in response. This was something I also saw mixed in to the whole like they don't want cards to be cheap because they know they lose if everybody had all the cards, which is whatever. We talked about how ridiculous that was.
I want
I
cards to be cheap.
I yes, I want them. Is
Yes.
but there was something I saw a bunch of people saying like now that the rarity collection will make every staple cheaper, we'll see a change in the competitive landscape now that everyone can afford to play.
Every card was already relatively cheap.
And I look at the rarity collection and I go, all of the like
Do you know
75
the
of
one
these
card
I
cards
think there were
were
only
the
so
one
two
cheap.
cards
card
in there that you could consider
I think
somewhat get
Baron
kept,
is
and it's
definitely a
and
good
Sorry,
I
we
one.
all
and okay,
let's
yeah.
one at a time.
I
Sorry,
I I
Jeff.
say I just think there's only two cards relatively that could possibly fall under the category of quote unquote gatekeeping someone from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And one would be Baron, but it's gotten cheaper
Mhm.
even before this, and the other would be Pot of Prosperity. Other than that, everything else is already pretty cheap in that set.
I
Mhm.
agree. I'm gonna look at the set list one more time
I'm
and
looking at it right now
let's
just to be
see.
sure.
We can even
But
just go through it. Alpha, Dirt, Lancia was originally a common. Ash, reprinted 90,000 times. Simoon, irrelevant and got reprinted, so it's cheap. Blue Eyes Abyss Draven, irrelevant and reprinted, so it's cheap. Danger Jackalope, irrelevant and reprinted twice, so it's cheap. Shifter, very relevant, but already a common and was in the tins. Ecclesia was in the tins, was cheap, was in an OTS pack. As an ultimate, so not really count. Not really played, not very expensive. Valor, Dirt, there's like 10 commons of this already. Golden Lord, irrelevant currently and cheap. Fairy Tale Luna, irrelevant currently and cheap. Fallen of Albaz, in a structure deck, worth nothing. Blue Eyes, Galaxy Eyes, something Afterglow Dragon, irrelevant, and I maybe that one might be expensive. I actually don't know, but it's cheap now. But it's not gatekeeping anybody out of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Bell,
I'm pretty sure that card was just in Mama.
it might have
But I could
been.
be wrong.
It might have been.
Yeah.
Bell.
It was
Already
in Mama,
reprinted.
yeah.
Structure deck.
Reprinted in isn't it's in the Crystal Beast structure deck. And was in the
Christie's,
tins.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which came out 2 weeks apart, by the way. Inspector Border, irrelevant and not expensive to the best of my knowledge. I think it got reprinted somewhat. I'm actually check on this one. I don't actually know.
It was in Dual Devastator, so it does exist.
Oh, so it definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Inspector Border, even the original Extreme Forces Secret Rare was $2.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Lava
I don't think we
Golem.
have to go through every card.
Yeah, well,
but
yeah.
but
I'm gonna
there's
flip. Do I
80
see
cards.
I'm
any?
gonna piece
These
together
are
the cards that I think
all-
were completely reasonable to be reprinted. Lava Golem, Sphere Mode, yes. Nibiru, yes. Let me.
I'm not saying none of these are
look.
reasonable to be reprinted. I'm
But
saying
their
even the
prices were not gatekeeping.
No.
Yeah.
But no,
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I agree. No, like I think that's like a fair way to look at it. It's like these weren't particularly expensive. However, putting cards like this that they are competitive cards, putting them back in rotation is never a bad thing.
Yes, I agree.
I just don't think it necessarily solved the
we
issue.
we are not saying it is a bad thing. That is the point. The whole point is that Ryan's going over the comments of saying this set makes it so
we'll save
everyone can
Yu-Gi-Oh!
play
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh. No, that's
All of these
not
cards were already
true.
pretty accessible. Which, not to
Mhm.
say I think this is a bad set. So what I do think this changes. What I do think that this changes. Again, I don't want to say like I think this does even further lower that initial barrier to entry we were talking about.
Mhm.
When we were talking about how
yes.
the real thing about this set is everyone who plays the game competitively had Jazz Blossom. It's not that expensive. It's in a bunch of structure decks now. It was in
It
the
is
tins.
literally a
It
like
is-
$2.50
It is not very
for a common.
expensive. If you play this game at any competitive level, you already own this card, right? This now puts even more into circulation. Not even because it puts more low rarities into circulation. Anybody who pulls high rarity Ash from this and goes, ooh, I want to play this in my deck. Now their low rarity ones are going back into circulation also. So repeat for Valor,
Or
Bell,
if someone
Tactics,
knew, they could sell that high rarity one and build it
and
into
get a
their
bunch.
deck.
Yes, that is also true. Yeah, that also is true. Yes, is that it doesn't. This did not make. It literally was Prosperity and Baron are the only cards that were already maybe evenly was worth something. I think maybe
Evenly
Evenly, maybe it wasn't.
Do,
I
do, you,
won.
do you know what's funny? Imperm was actually worth something.
Oh,
It
really?
was worth like $9, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure, until the
interesting.
set got printed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, evenly was evenly was a
the
couple
mama
bucks.
the mama evenly match was like
Oh, I
$3.
forgot it was
Mhm.
in Mama. Yeah,
Yeah.
evenly. Yeah, even that's funny. Yeah, evenly was actually, or no, I mean,
Uh,
Imperm might have been the most
the
expensive version of this.
yeah,
Imperm was like $10 actually.
the mama imperm is six seven
Yeah, but
dollars
it
right
was a week ago. It was
now.
$10.
But a week ago, yeah.
Yeah,
So
interesting. Okay, I didn't realize Imperm was still that much. I guess it hadn't quite hit
I didn't
the
think the mama
and
one was
tactics.
$10,
Yeah, I didn't
but
think so
yeah.
either. And then tactics was probably like $15 if I had to guess. Tactics
No,
talent.
that one was also like
Yeah,
low at
tactics
one point. It was like
talent. Let's look at
uh
tins.
Munition
Let's see.
Mavens,
A week ago it was
uh
$15. Yeah.
$15.
Yeah,
Okay.
a week ago. Okay. So, but
But I would
again,
not consider these. I consider like you needing 3 prosperities that are like making it $100. I could. That is where I would consider like, all right, maybe someone can't afford that.
yes.
Not
So a week ago,
needing
let's
two
even
talents
say a
for
month ago.
$10.
A month ago, in late September, so September 25th, prosperity was almost $50. Okay, I will grant you that. That is a very commonly played card, and that is a barrier to entry of a new player that is significantly different from all these other cards, right? Like the most expensive one of these cards here that a new player would need or want, not even need, would want depending on their deck, would probably be tactics. And a play set of tactics was cheaper than one prosperity a month ago.
Yeah.
So Baron, which is not played in, it kind of goes in and out, but it's definitely a card that is played heavily. And Prosperity, yeah, I'll say are the two cards in this. Everything else, yes, I'm not saying $50 for a playset of tactics is cheap. Like that's definitely like a real amount of money that you're spending.
Also,
But I don't think
I want
that's
to
the
point
make or
out that
break.
there's very little decks that are actually playing 3 of that.
That is
So I
true.
don't think
You're
that's
right.
also realistic to say. I think most of them would be playing, maybe 2. Some could fit like 1 in or whatever, but very few decks would be playing 3
Yes.
tactics. But yes.
Yes. Which like, yeah. So I don't think like, I don't know, man. I maybe this is gonna be another unpopular opinion. I don't think the quality of reprints in this set is significantly different than
I
Mama or Battles of
No,
Legend
I would
or
like
many
to
sets
make
we've
the
seen in the
argument that
past.
It's
this was quite a lazy set from like KDE TCG region, right? This is just it's the
copy and
OCG
paste.
set list. Yeah, like remove Maxi, that's it. I would have liked to have seen pods that are just borderline
I would have
unplayable.
liked
The,
them
the
to
very
be
obvious ones, I would
actually
like to see
Maxi
them
in the
removed.
set.
Okay, calm
I
down.
mean, that would have just been cool. So
Yeah.
what was neglected? I feel like was again Time Wizard formats. Those seem like they were neglected in a reprint set like this that could have had some really cool rarity
Random
bumps.
Lone Fire Blossom jump
Yes.
scare. Like
Yeah,
literal
yeah.
random Lone Fire
Sure,
Blossom jump
sure,
scare.
sure.
Other than that, yeah, I agree. Compulsory evacuation device.
So like but like again, like that was the OCG thing, and they doesn't exist there. Time was
Yeah.
just not well. Yeah, it will be. But yeah, like all I can really see in a set like this is like, yes, the reprints are good, but there's just a lot more. There's a lot of filler, and that's not to say Mama wasn't amazing. I think this set is amazing. I think this set is quite good. I do, however, think this set could have been better, which is crazy to think
So
about. Like
I was about to say it feels almost very it feels like almost like wrong or very entitled to say this set could have been better. But
Yeah.
I think
I
deep down
agree.
it could have been better with very minimal effort. Um but something I want to talk about how I think this set gets right is I got to open some of this yesterday. I opened 2 boxes and I had so much fun opening it. I felt like a kid in a candy store, and I
Oh,
think
I'm
that's
sure.
I
you
Yeah.
were just
think
pulling playable cards, and sometimes they're in ridiculous high rarities.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
and I think invoking that emotion is something that is
Yes.
thoroughly lacking in Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's
Oh,
not exciting to open things.
that's
And
so yeah. When you're
I
sorry,
think
keep going.
no, no, I just think that if they can do this again, I think if they could figure out a way to implement this sort of thing, um, like but without making sense. So, like, I think if you just translate this 1-to-1, like we said before, with OCG and TCG, cards will be worth nothing and boxes will be worth nothing.
Mm.
Everyone will buy singles. Um, but I think if you could do something like this in a side set once a year, maybe. Japan does the rarity collection every 2 years, but
Yeah, something
I
like
don't know.
that. Yeah.
I just had so much fun opening this. I think everyone's gonna have such a good time opening this. It's everyone,
Now,
like
And then
like
from
yeah,
both
another perspective, though,
competitive, not competitive.
I would like to raise something. I
enter
was
into
watching
evidence.
Jesse. I was watching Jesse open boxes, and I did see a quarter century ice barrier.
Oh my god,
I
that's
saw the Black
so.
Wing quarter century, and I
That's
saw the Blue Eyes quarter century, and all I could think to myself was, "Wow, imagine being on the poor end of variants and pulling the literal duds of the set.
so
I would be
that's
very upset."
that's the issue, right? The issue with all
Mm-hmm.
of this of like the luxury rarities will carry whatever, and then you look at this set and you go
Well,
quarter century ice
yes. So
barrier.
like this, that's not even, how they make, like, I think you can make the argument like you want to have something for everyone. And
Yeah.
do you know what I think was the sweet spot of the something for everyone thing was like Mama, when you could pull like a Blue Eyes or like a Red Eyes in a really cool rarity, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you just had a Blue Eyes in this set. Don't care.
Blue Eyes
Yeah.
Abyss Dragon.
No. I'm talking like vanilla Blue
No,
Eyes.
I
I would
know,
not
I
care.
know, I know.
Like it would be
I
so, and
know.
it would be so ridiculous too, because like Blue Eyes has been printed in like every, but it's like, no, just like throw it in here, be done with it.
I mean,
That would have made it so
I
much
feel like
nicer as
they
well.
already do that with most sets anyway, so I feel like it's
Mm.
fine. Like, what's one more fucking set with the blue eyes in it?
Oh no, for sure. But like, why not though? Like at that point, like
That's
why
that's
wasn't Blue
that's what
Eyes
I'm
in this set?
saying. I
Yeah.
literally just said. I said, why not? Why not one more
Oh,
set with
sure,
blue eyes in
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. I
They
think
already do
like
it anyway.
so yeah. I mean, I wouldn't hate a set like this to happen again, obviously. I would like if it did happen again. And by all accounts, everyone says they're buying this set, right? Like everyone's buying this set.
This
I
set
would
either
be
happens again
shocked.
or they reprint it
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
ends up
I would
as like a
I
seasonal thing.
I would be shocked if this is not the best-selling product of the year. I
Mm-hmm.
would be shocked.
Oh, of course,
And
yeah.
if this is the best-selling product of the year, surely we get the Rarity Collection Quarter Century Anniversary Edition 2, the second anniversary. Like something, right? Like, surely we would get it again if it performs super, super well. But,
I just hope this isn't something. So, obviously, if you listened to our podcast before, we've talked about how Japan is just very strict with how things work. That's just like a very common thing among all Japanese companies, and that we just know. But I just hope that this isn't just a one-time thing that we were allowed to get because
yeah,
because it's the 20th anniversary, and Japan is like, all right, you can have this. I hope that we can have this again,
yeah.
or something similar. Maybe not as broad, like, maybe we don't need, like, the extra secret rares or whatever, the platinum secret rares
Those
that
ended up
kinda
being
look.
super bizarre.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
which is
or
when I have some in my hands, then I'll have a better opinion on them. But
yeah, I mean,
they're
if they did something like this again where it was, like, maybe it was 60 cards, and I feel like it's hard to do a set like this
it's
every year because what are you reprinting at that point? Like,
like, are you reprinting this all again? Like, okay, and obviously, like, when you do it again, Tri Brigade Revolt doesn't make the cut, but
yeah.
but like, but yeah, like, I mean, there are some pretty obvious outliers where, like, if you did this again, what would you do? Probably, like, okay, so we have Ash and we have Bell and we have Valor and Nibiru. Okay, well, next time we do what? Ogre and Droll and Crow, I guess. You know? Um maybe Mourner, like, I guess. Like that's the direction you would take it. And then of course that's only, 5-6 cards, but there are like there are cards that you could do. You could even dip into a lot of cards I feel like were not in this set in Japan. And again, this was just ripped straight from the Japanese set list. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
in this set because older Japanese rarity collections covered them. So maybe if we got another one, we could dip into some of the older cards. Because, like, there are some pretty glaring omissions for what is, like the anniversary rarity collection, like a celebration of 25 years of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's like
You know what? For
no.
being a celebration of 25 years, I'm very surprised there's not a Dark Edition and a Blue Eyes in this.
I
That's
was gonna
actually
say,
crazy.
I
No,
was
that
gonna
that's what
say,
I mean. Like,
I was
it
gonna
doesn't make sense.
say, Blackluster Soldier, Dark Armed,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Judgment
But yeah,
Dragon, even
That would
like
be
the
Yeah.
silly
hard.
stuff.
I'm almost certain there's just Judgment Dragon in an old rarity collection, though, probably. And probably Dark Armed and probably
Yeah.
BLX. If I had to be honest with you, there's probably those cards already.
Instead, we get Vision Hero Faris
Vision
and Win the Wind Shadow.
But yeah.
Oh no! Oh wait, no. The other BM, the Iris Sword Soul.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that one
too.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is really weird. Yeah, some of these are obviously weird. And it's like, I don't know. It's all I can think of is like, you got the dud. Like
Yeah,
pulling the
literally.
Iris, like
Open the
you
door
pull
and
the
it's Sword
ultimate.
Soul Iris. Oh
Yeah,
man.
you get the ultimate rare Iris Sword Soul. It's like, you got the dud. And it's like, yeah, I guess. Like, oh well. But yeah. I know this ended up being longer than our last one, and I'm sure
Where are
we
we at right
lost.
now?
You don't want to know, and I'm
Oh,
sure
okay.
we lost our focus somewhere along the line. But I hope that some of the things that we said
Well, if they've
addressed
listened this long, I hope they know that we do just love the game.
Yeah,
And we don't want people to not play. We do, however, believe that a lot of the opinions are maybe not necessarily misguided, maybe
misinformed. I think.
misinformed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just one thing that I didn't get to touch on. So just quickly, people make this comparison to games like Digimon. Digimon is a Bandai game. There was a Digimon card game, probably multiple over the last, 20, 30-ish years. And the same goes for Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is actually releasing Fusion World, which is a complete reboot, and it's going to integrate with Japan, similar to how One Piece works. So Japan will likely get the sets first, and then, the West will get them. And that completely invalidates DBS, which was their flagship game since like 2017. So basically, when you compare it to a Bandai game, just know that there is a world where Bandai will just pull the plug on that game without giving a shit. And that's why the stuff is so cheap. And I will stand by that. They will just not care. And that has happened since the dawn of time. And Jeff can attest to that.
Well,
That has happened
Bandai is
every time.
notoriously bad with card games. I think really the one that's caught fire the most is obviously One Piece. But
Mm-hmm.
a very common thing that I say about card games when new one comes out is if they did not have the IP attached to it, I don't think this game would survive today. So
And
like
we've
with
we've seen that. We've seen that with games like
If
Battle Spirits as
Lorcana
well,
was an
right?
original IP, there's no way
Oh,
it would.
absolutely not.
It wouldn't have survived
And
Well, depending on how
If
the courts
Pokemon
agree with that.
if Pokemon came out today and was not associated with Pokemon, there's no way it would survive. It's the same thing like with One Piece and a lot of
Well,
card
I feel
games.
like it
I
would be
think
the same with
One
Yu-Gi-Oh
Piece is
and Magic as well, right? Like,
you
I
know,
think if they came
100%.
out
If
today,
Magic came out today, I don't think it would survive as a card game.
for sure.
Um, yeah,
But that's not to
yeah,
say that like those card games obviously paved the way. So if we look
right.
through like the infancy of trading card games themselves, like Magic paved the way, Yu-Gi-Oh paved the way, Pokemon definitely paved the way in like how unique they were from each other.
Right.
And then these card games are all sort of just like amalgamations of whatever we have left over, right?
Yeah.
To go on Jeff's point of like, did Shadowverse, like, is that game still exist? Or like, did they
So
already ship it?
it's pretty popular in Japan. It did a very poor job at bringing it over here.
Yeah, I've definitely heard
It's like
that.
they did not plan a how to do like organized play beforehand and kind of rush into it. And if you do that, well, really gonna suck,
Some of
which
these
really
cards
sucks
have
because
value.
I think that the Shadowverse game is actually like pretty good. It was just ran. The company just decided the global version was going to be run poorly. It's really unfortunate because it's a pretty cool game.
Do you think the Shadowverse like Western adaptation, do you think that's like a testament to like you can't take the OCG model, OCG, huh? The
Well,
Japanese model and
100%.
sort of
That
like
is
bring it into
you.
like
well, I think it's
Western
less the
society
cards
or
and more
no?
of the organized play direction. That's kind of the
But like,
failing,
is it
right?
like a
Well,
is it like a
I think
combination? Like, is the product still worth money or what?
so
Like,
It
there's
is, I
their product,
think.
yeah. So they have a lot of product that a lot of cards are worth
sure,
money
sure,
inside the sets. Um,
okay,
but I think there maybe their philosophies of organized play from a Japanese perspective, they thought they could translate over here, and that is just not the case. It does not work like that. So like,
okay, okay,
Western audiences are much more prone to wanting high level competitive play. And in Japan, they're
sure.
very okay with just
So,
sitting in a shop
do you
and that's
think
it.
that's more a case of like the people that are playing Shadowverse, they're not so much people that are fans of like like Shadowverse itself, like the whole like lore and the online stuff. Like they're actual just like card game players that might maybe they enjoy Shadowverse,
I
but
think the
maybe
people who
at the
have
end of the
stuck with
day
it
they're
right
just
now are just people
mm,
who enjoyed the original, and
sure, sure, sure,
also I think the game is like really good art and stuff like that. So I think that could also be a reason. I think between like the art and the aesthetic, and then also being a fan of the original game.
sure, sure. But then I guess like yeah, it's because that's when I look at games like One Piece. Is like I think there's so many unique plays to games like One Piece, Digimon, and Dragon Ball, like the Bandai trio, because they like those IPs, right? And I
Yeah,
definitely saw that a lot with Dragon Ball as well. Like these were like it was we like to call it baby's first card game because like they were the card games that people were like, oh, I'm gonna play this, and it's a similar vein to like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon of like okay, like saw the TV show. Here are the cards. I would like to play this, but like maybe to a more mature audience
yeah.
potentially.
I mean, I have friends
Right?
who play One Piece, and when I talk about the game with them, they're like, "Yeah, the game is like kind of whatever," but they love
Mm.
One Piece, and that's why they play it. That's a perfectly acceptable thing to like, even
No,
if
no,
you don't think like,
definitely,
just because
definitely.
you if you want to play just because you love One Piece, more power to
That's
you.
the whole
Like,
Do
point
you
of the
do you
yeah, it's the whole
IP,
think
point.
right?
do
That's
Yeah.
you
the
do
whole
you
point.
think so at that point though, when we get to situations like that, do you think that might also play into like the whole like secondary market or like the cost of gameplay where it's like yeah, if One Piece was expensive, then like all of these people who haven't played a card game before, they might just be like, yeah, that's kind of an expensive hobby. So it's like it's better for you to make a card game like One Piece or Digimon have a lower like entry cost,
Mhm.
right? Than a game like Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like, well, this has just been around for a while anyway. It's like to get newer people in. I don't think we decrease the price. Like, it's if they're not coming in now with all the OP initiatives and everything else, like, is this going to solve it? Like, because we went over this when it was like that Japanese press release of like, yeah, Master Duel isn't really translating into TCG players, and like they were trying to figure out, what's going on, and that was like a big issue in Japan that I feel like everyone sort of neglected to talk about. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh is not dying, but it is definitely a lot less strong than it was in prior years in
In
Japan.
Japan. In the
No,
TCG, I
in
think it's doing
TCG,
quite
it's
well.
doing
It
crazy.
is
Yeah, it's doing
popping
great.
off. Yes, I actually
Even though
do
we've had
still think
like a
that.
lot of duds, I think TCG is doing
Yeah,
quite well.
I agree. But and
No,
that's a whole other like and truly, I think again, not everything is going to be this clear cut and black and white, but I do think as bad as we complain about the actual prize support, the organized play, the actual events are reasonably well run and
yes,
provide a good experience that
Okay,
I
so
think a
speaking
lot of
about
these
that,
games
I think
don't provide.
yes, I think we as Yu-Gi-Oh players, if you haven't had experienced other games, really undervalue how good our
How well
organized
run a
play is
YCS
compared
is in
to many other
comparison.
ones. So I wanted
Yeah.
to. So there was a Pokemon regional last weekend I was supposed to go to. I decided not to for mental health reasons, but Max still went to have fun, and he just wanted to play side events. And they did not run side events, and they every time they tried to enter a side event, they either were like, "Oh yeah, come back at 5 p.m." And then when he would come back at 5 p.m. and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, all the side events are done or like over." And this happened multiple times throughout the week where it was like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They could not plan any side events because of how disorganized they were or how understaffed they were. They just could not actually run side events. It's crazy. And apparently this is uh, according to people there, this is something that's like not new for like side events to not happen, or like be very disorganized at events. Whereas at Yu-Gi-Oh, side events, people travel to Yu-Gi-Oh events just to play the side events. That is
Oh
how
yeah.
how well ran they are and how good they are. Um, so yeah, just random side tangent of we actually, for as long as for organized play, we actually have it pretty good.
Yes, I've definitely had my fair share of experiences of just like the tournament not being run quite as well, from playing some other games. But and yeah, and that is something that like, because at the end of the day, that's why a lot of people, and that's why most people listening to this play the game. Like, we are competitive players, and we provide our that insight from that perspective, right? And that's why people are listening. So like, that is why I think Yu-Gi-Oh has definitely been doing well enough, despite the prize support being abhorrent. Quite frankly, like very very bad. It is just still like a competitive experience, and that's at the end of the day kind of what we're all there for, right? Like, if we wanted to make money, we'd be doing literally anything else. But
Yeah,
not
I
to
think it's
say
also
that it
just
would be
very fun.
nice if pricing was better, but
I think it's also just very funny how like I feel like I think maybe like this whole topic of like expensive cards is just like the flavor of the month, and
yeah.
a month from now everyone will forget. And I hope that is not the case, in the essence of, I hope Konami sees how people are unhappy with certain things and takes that to heart to change sets for the better. Uh, on top of that, I think that um, the reason why I bring that up is, and why I bring up it being flavor of the month, is I feel like not too long ago when Pokemon increased their prize support, everyone in the Yu-Gi-Oh community was like popping off about how bad the prize support is and Yu-Gi-Oh is and all this stuff and how they want it to be better. But then 1,900 people just went to this last
Yeah.
YCS. Like, so like we always say, people don't play Yu-Gi-Oh for the prize support. They play it because of their friends and because they love Yu-Gi-Oh. Uh, and that's been basically how it has been for since the beginning of time. Um, yeah.
Well said. Yeah, I think that covers everything I wanted to mention, I think. I know we didn't really end with a decisive what would we do to change these products, but at the end of the day, that's not really
I mean, I think we went
necessary.
over like a. I mean, I feel like we went over what we would do to try and change them, but I think by
Yeah,
changing them, it also could open up a new can of worms. It's multi-layered.
of
Like the
course.
changes that has to happen in order to get the products to a spot where they're more uh more balanced, right? It's not just originally my thought process was, oh, you just change the secret rares and put them in ultra rares. And I said, and thought about it for a second, and I was like, no, it's not that easy. There has to be more changes than that. There has to be probably like less secret rares, and then like the ultra rares have to be better. They have to stop putting like really shit ultra rares in these spots. That way you have like good secret rares, and then you have decent ultra rares, and then you end up with sets that are, where they are worth $70 a box, and you probably don't have $100 cards. You probably have $60 cards, and I think that's perfectly adequate.
I think that's the other thing that we never quite hit home on is the reason we see these cards be so much is because of the disparity of the top end and the low end. And when you are buying this product, and most of the value or the cost of these are developed from the price of acquisition for a store and the volume they have, and over a large run, you have to make your money back somehow, and you can't always do it for stuff like Dune. Your money can't just sit there. Like, if you put X thousands of dollars into a product for your store and you have so many cases, oh well, I gotta buy Age of Overlord, and that set's gonna look a lot better. I guess I have to sell Dune at a loss so I can make money, so I can afford Age of Overlord. This that'll actually make me money. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting here with, it costs X amount to buy a case, or 100 cases that you're opening for your store, and then you're selling the cards, and when SP Little Knight is $100, we see Wanted, go down to 50. And then we see all the rest of these cards go down and down and down. Like Diabell starts only like between $25. And then you get down to your $1 TG Rocket Salamanders because you're opening a case of a you're opening 100 cases of a product, and you're going to get the same number of SP Little Knights as you are TG Salamander, whatever's on average. And you have to make your money back somehow. And when TG Rocket Salamander is a card that absolutely nobody wants at all, you are no longer in a position where you must get $10 per secret rare because TG Rocket Salamander is worth nothing. So now every single secret rare has to be more expensive. Oh no, TG Limited Removal is also worth nothing. It is also $1. Oh no, Snake Eyes Flameberg Dragon is $2. Oh no, Dumataf Blessing of Horus is $3. And now you're in a situation where it just creates this domino effect where now your store has spent $10,000 on however many cases of this set, and now you have to make that money back, and the heavy lifting is going to be done by the only good cards in the set. And that is what creates the price disparities of these things, where stores have to get their money back or try, and they've already spent all this money on this product, and the bad cards that occupy the same slots and the same ratios are not going to do it. If we saw Typhon be a secret rare instead of TG Rocket Salamander, would that make the price of SP Little Knight go down? Maybe not. Would it equalize the disparity of prices between some of these secret rares? I think it might. I think you'd start seeing maybe some of these other ones equalize a little bit. Like maybe Wanted would be a little bit cheaper if Typhon is a secret rare, because then you have another secret rare that's actually like worth something that can kind of help you compensate. But I don't know. There's a lot of factors. It's not quite as simple as just flipping one card around.
No.
obviously.
It's definitely not as simple as that. Yeah.
But I do think a
But
lot
I
goes into
think
making a
definitely
set.
also getting some of these shit ultras help also, like the Tostinas and stuff like that, because again, like some of these secret rares are shit, but so are the ultra rares, and I think the ultra rares. A lot of times when you look at sets I think are good, the ultra rares I think are what carry the set into being more balanced and not feeling as bad.
Oh, for sure.
More so than the secret rares. So if you had like 3 good secret rares, but you had a bunch of good ultra rares, I think a lot of people would prefer that, honestly. Um, Again, if we just went back to and put, I don't even know if there's any cards in the set that could be ultra rare that should be that
Yeah.
were like decent, like if Ken and Gen were ultra rares.
Sure, yeah. I think I meant something like that. Or even if like,
Yeah.
or I think they put the Snake Eye Field Spell as an ultra rare, and I think they should have picked the Snake Eye, like the Stratos one, as the ultra rare.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think it should have been that guy. It should have been the ultra rare, not the Field Spell. But
Especially since
that's
they know it,
negligible.
and then next set there's like another card. There's a new Snake Eyes,
Mhm.
and you would like play that one in tandem with the new Snake Eyes. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
So
I think so too. I don't remember
yeah,
exactly, but yeah, I
I'm
believe
pretty
so.
sure it says if it's like added to your hand, you can special summon
Yes,
it
it
or
does do
something.
that. Yes, that
So
is what
you
it
can like
does.
normal summon certs and special summon,
Yep.
and so I mean normally Stratos like monsters are higher rarity anyway, so it
Yeah,
feels
it is
kind of weird that
weird.
this one
This
isn't.
card wasn't. Yeah, but yeah, there's at the end of the day, I think probably we kind of touched on this, but I'm going to definitively say I think the problem is all of these sets are predicated on having 50 commons that cannot be worth anything. Like out of the bat, like just out of the gate, if your card is a common in a core booster set, it cannot have value.
Bulk.
It
Yeah.
cannot. It is impossible. Too many packs are opened. If a card is a common in a set, it cannot have value. If a card is a super rare in a set, it is extremely unlikely to have value. We've seen some outliers, but it's extremely unlikely to have value, to the point that I'm hesitant to count super rares as cards that could potentially have value. But we'll say once every year or two, there will be a super rare that will have value. So then you're left with your ultras and secrets as the only cards that you can potentially have in your set that have value. And whoa, that's a quarter of your set. That's 10 secrets and 14 ultras. There are not going to be 24 tournament relevant cards in your set, no matter what. It's impossible. 24 is just too many. And when that happens, you dilute the product so significantly. Like I think that's I'm going to say it. I'm going to be bold. I think secret rares that are so worthless, they are under $1, like TG Rocket Salamander, do more damage than secret rares that are too expensive, like SP.
All right, we're gonna
That's
edit
my
that
hot
out
take.
because you're gonna cancel for
I
that.
know. I know. I think the idea that you can spend $70 on a box
No,
and
yeah,
get
no, yeah.
$3 of cards is unacceptable.
It is
That is
unacceptable.
where I think like
That
it's
that
just
huge disparity is what makes sets feel bad to open, and then
yes.
what also just makes people not want to buy it because you're just not getting anything even close to being equivocal.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you buy Duelist Nexus for $40 or $45, if you get the two best secret rares, you still do not make your money back.
Yeah.
Um,
I think just like the train, just like the logic needs to just take a little bit further. It's like, okay, SP Little Knight is $100. Like, why is that bad? It's bad because it costs too much. Okay, that's fair. So, how do we get it? Are you going to buy product to get it? No. Why not? Because you're equally likely to get an SP Little Knight as you are to get a $1 card.
yes.
And and then and it's like, okay, so how do we fix this? Yes, SP Little Knight can come down, but how do we make that come down? We make that come down by making the other cards actually have value. Right? You follow? Okay. That's
So
the big issue that needs to
you,
be addressed.
you can do that. A lot of other people will just say, "Well, just don't make it a secret rare."
I mean, then I guess then your set doesn't have value.
Yeah,
And then
right. So
we're
the,
right back where we started.
exactly. It's yes. I feel like a lot of people are just going to say that. Like, well, then if you don't make it a secret rare, you can make it an ultra rare, and that's true. You could make it an ultra rare, and it would probably have value. Um,
But then your set is
as the
worse,
card, but then your set
and
overall
then
is worse,
stores
and
don't
then
have
this
it.
this might not be a like $70 box, and it might end up being like a $50 box, and then you're losing money again because why would you buy a box of this to when you could just buy the Little Knight
And
for
the
$20, right?
people that are getting hurt by this are the stores. Konami is
It's not
not
me,
getting.
Ryan, and
Yeah,
Bowden.
like
We're not getting hurt. Like as many as
yes,
other people would like to make it seem
I
on social
know. Yes,
media.
I do not. Yes, I do not get PayPal $20 by Konami every time SP Little Knight sells over $100 on TCG Player. As much as people would like to make it look like that's not how it works. It is the stores and your local community that loses when sets are worthless. Yes, your local community also gets hurt when everyone is priced out of the game. We're not saying cards need to be $1 million. Yes, there needs to be a middle ground. But if every single card is worthless, then no cards get purchased, your store doesn't sell product, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Ceases to exist. We did it. I think. I did
Yes,
it.
that is that is
Okay.
exactly how it works.
It only took
Yes.
us 2 hours and 53 minutes. We did it. I'm gonna see. Make sure watch. The title of this will be like whatever podcast episode 23. Like we solve a Yu-Gi-Oh! Watch to the end. I don't know how are like. All right. Anyways, there we go. I think that pretty perfectly encompasses all of my thoughts on this.
And we might have forgot something, and if we did,
I'm
please
sure
let
we
us
did.
know in the comments, and
Yes,
we can try to bring it up in the
please.
next video.
Oh,
As much
the
as
last. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
I really do try to read everything both on social media directed at me and things in the comments because I do think it's important to have this dialogue and not shut people out. Obviously, I think some people need to be shut out, but
I
for
mean,
them,
even with this one,
but
we looked at the comments section of
yeah,
multiple videos as well that were talking about our podcast and everything else, like Jeff's tweet and we're trying to really get down to the nitty gritty and sort of like quell the misinformation. Not to say like, not to say Mega Capital G,
Fake news.
did a bad video by any means. Like, he was completely reasonable about it, but I think a lot of stuff was taken out of context. And that's fine. Hopefully we fix some of that. The comment section though, while a lot of them were quite mean, yeah, I don't know.
But I think that basically sums everything up. So, like I said, if you have any other comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section, because we do read them and we would like to talk about them. If you think there's any things that we think that we got wrong or think that we should go over more in another episode, it gives us more things to talk about too.
Yeah, it really does.
I think also it previously people were asking about putting this back on Spotify. I know there was some technical issues that led us to stop doing it on Spotify, but I think Ryan said he's going to try to make it work again.
Yes,
But
I
you
do
can't leave
believe.
comments then.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
want to leave comments, please come over to the YouTube.
Yeah, you cannot leave comments on Spotify, to the best of my knowledge. I guess you can send. I almost said you can send us a letter, but I don't want mail. I don't want that.
Yeah,
You can.
we'll
Yeah,
open a PO
we'll
box
open
and
an
it'll
email,
solve itself.
so you can email
Yeah,
comments. That's a thing that people do for podcasts, actually, because there's no comment
pretty
section. They actually do
much.
emails. But if you're on YouTube, just leave a comment on YouTube. Yeah, like I also try to. We are at the size where we can still read every comment. So as you know, and I don't think that will change anytime soon, really. So
Yeah,
I'm.
yeah.
I will say we had a lot more on the last video than we've had previously, which is good. I like for better or for worse, the controversy led to expose literally for better or for worse, the controversy led to exposure. And now that everybody has made up their minds, I wonder if they will bother listening to the follow up.
Part two,
I
especially when
truly
it's 3
wonder.
hours long.
Okay, so I think we cut it here. I know
Yeah.
we did. I mean, as I said in the beginning, this is just us talking. We don't have like a script or anything. I'm definitely not going to go back and edit this. I'm absolutely not going to edit 3 hours of this. And it's just going to go up as it is. And yeah, if anything we said really rubbed you the wrong way, please let us know, and we'll try, and let us know your thoughts on it. And we will definitely, do our best to get back to you, because yeah, we do read everything at this point, and I want to hear more people's opinions on it. And again, I hope just getting more of our opinions out there have maybe changed some. If we can even just change one person's view who before this went into, after watching the last video, was like, they're monsters. If we can even have one person be like, maybe we're not so different, you and I, then
If
I
you
think,
cut me, I bleed, I
yeah,
promise.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that wow, this was long. This is gonna be something. All right.
Thank you and see you next
Yes,
time.
if you've made it this far, we appreciate it greatly. And hopefully we don't get canceled, and we'll see you next time.
Oh yeah.